say they unafraid.
Those who spread and cheer, a chasm among their brethren dear. Can you not see the beam in thine own eye before casting judgment from on high? In God we trust, let this be our creed, to build bridges not walls, to plant love seed. For in the embrace of unity, we find the strength to coexist, you see. Instead of seeking peace, you summon strife. You revel in chaos, you crave the fight. But there is but one race, the human race. And in unity's light lies our true might. In God we trust, let this be our creed, to build bridges not walls, to plant love seed. For in the embrace of unity, we find the strength to coexist, you see. You see. Let us lay down our arms, our words of war, and seek the path of peace once more. For every soul a brother, a sister. In the grand tapestry of life we are all but one. You serve the schemes of those who profit from discord, from turmoil, from endless pain. But united we stand, divided we fall. In unity we shatter the chain. In God we trust, let this be our creed, to build bridges not walls, to plant love seed. For in the embrace of unity, we find the strength to coexist, you see. You see. Guardian angels watch from above, guiding us with the wings of love. They whisper peace into our hearts and show us how to mend the parts. In God we trust, let this be our creed, to build bridges not walls, to plant love seed. For in the embrace of unity, we find the strength to coexist, you see. You see. Together let us heal the wounds of a world torn by needless feuds. For in the light of love's embrace, we find our true and sacred place. embrace, we find our true and sacred place. In God we trust, let this be our creed, to build bridges, not walls, to plant love seed. For in the embrace of unity, we find the strength to coexist, you see, you see.
Hi, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to the Teresa Show for those of you that are new and those of you that are old. It's been a hot minute. I have been extremely heads down for this whole week, getting a lot of things done, aside from following operations that are upcoming. But today I wanted us to kind of talk about what's going on and pretty much delve into things that are not being said out loud. Now, there's a contract that none of us have ever signed, yet for some reason we're bound by it. It wasn't written on parchment, not ratified by any Senate. It was whispered in the hum of routines, the click of our decisions, the surrender of our consent. You protect me, I obey you. You feed me, security, so I'll trade you my autonomy. But that's what happens when one side stops keeping the word. Well, what we're seeing is that when one side actually stops keeping their word. Every civilization is built on an invisible agreement between power and the people. It was Thomas Hobbes. He said, we trade freedom for safety. John Locke, which I have a video that I want to play, insisted we're born with rights the state must respect. Rousseau claimed we choose the chains we wear. But what if the chains were never chosen, only inherited? I mean, look around you. Institutions are fraying. Laws are bending. Trust is eroded. The silent contract has become a ghost. So, on tonight's show, everything that we're going to talk about, one thing is what I would like all of us to keep in mind. What do we owe the state when the state no longer keeps its promise? Now, the inheritance of obedience is basically what this contract is, right? We began it with the idea of obligation. Why obey? Why believe in a system we did not build? The social contract insists. Well, because it's a tradition. Because the alternative, they say, is chaos. Hobbes pointed that world. He said, that's it. Let me illustrate it for you. A war of every man against every man. Now, what we as a people globally, and I'm speaking to my international listeners now, is our complete autonomy. And in return, we expected protection, justice, and meaning. Life, liberty, property. That's what Locke said. These are natural rights. The state exists to preserve them. But what happens when these protections become the very tools of control? When obedience becomes virtue instead of inquiry? When we're taught citizenship not as a responsibility, but as compliance? We internalize this. To follow the law is to be good. We saw it during COVID. Follow the rules, put the mask, get your vaccine, then maybe we will allow you to have a job. Maybe we will allow you to sit at a restaurant. Maybe. Oh no, but we did get that benefit, but it could have been a maybe. None of us have actually paused and said which law, like whose justice, under whose name. So here, in the global stage, we see it. Democracy, once held as a beacon, now surveys the corpse of its promise. We see intelligence agencies within the United States and outside. England, I'm looking at you. Surveillance grids, algorithmic governance, quietly inserted into the social contract. The public gives up one thing, and the hidden elites take another. Obedience turned into a product. Consent is manufactured, not given. The contract inherited rather than entered. So, when you obey without remembering the why, you are, in essence, a servant of something you don't understand. We are taught citizenship. We are conditioned into obedience. And the most dangerous obedience is the one disguised as virtue. I mean, COVID taught us that very well, didn't it? It taught us that extremely well. And so there's always this silence, this pause, this calm that comes before every storm. Not the kind that frightens, but the kind of silence that reminds you that God is listening. And we're kind of in that silence right now. The world is loud, shouting opinions, lawsuits, hashtags, outrage, but underneath it, something deeper is shifting, and you can feel it. A pressure that's building in the air, like creation itself holding its breath, waiting to see who's going to speak the truth when it costs something again. Now, faith teaches us that the test doesn't come with everything coming at you very easily, right? It comes when truth is expensive, when standing still feels safer than standing up. This is the season we're at. And what's being tested is not our politics or our speech or our social media etiquette. It's our covenant with our conscience. You see, every nation, every generation writes its own version of the silent contract, that unspoken agreement between people and power. As I've said, we trade obedience for order, compliance for peace, and somewhere along the way, that voice that God placed in each of us, that still, small, uncompromising voice that gets buried beneath fear. But fear was never faith's companion. Fear is the counterfeit of reverence. And God doesn't ask for silence. He asks for courage. So we're going to talk tonight about speech, about the freedom to say what's true, even when it offends the system, about what happens when the state, the courts, or the powerful begin to decide what's safe to say and what must be swallowed. We'll talk about lawsuits that blur the lines between justice and intimidation, about new hate speech laws abroad that sound compassionate but whisper control. We'll talk about anger. Yeah, the righteous kind, that strips away the polite lies and forces us to look at what's rotting underneath. But before any of that, I want to remind you the war over words has always been spiritual first. I have explained many times how your words do matter, how they carry weight and influence things when you speak them. But let's go further back. Let's begin with Genesis. Remember, the serpent did not swing a sword, he spoke. He twisted language until good looked like evil and obedience looked like weakness. And ever since, the battle has been the same. Who gets to define the truth? Now, Christ himself warned us that every idle word matters. He knew the power of the tongue, the power to bless or to bind. And yet, his ministry was pure speech, parables, proclamations, forgiveness spoken into being. He didn't censor his critics or sue his accusers. He answered lies with revelation, not retribution. And that's the model I'm trying to do right now. It's been a little bit hard. I've been conditioned to do different. We all have all these years, haven't we? Let's just speak the truth and offend them, and we don't care. When they offend you, just do it. But I am taking that road because, gosh darn it, should have done it a long time ago. Truth stands on its own. And over the years, those of you that have watched me grow, lose, gain, laugh, cry, fail, win, all of that. And so now you see me enter into that phase, embracing that model. That doesn't mean I do not point out discrepancies. So let's walk through some of these stories, the lawsuits, the laws, the cultural confusion. I want you to see beyond the headlines because this isn't about celebrities or courtrooms or party politics. It's about the eternal question of who owns your voice. Because if the state owns it, freedom is theater. If fears own it, faith is an act. But if God owns it, if truth owns it, then nothing. Not a government, not a mob, not even a threat of ruin can silence it. And I know many of you feel exhausted. You see corruption unpunished, lies rewarded, and wonder if speaking out even matters anymore. Trust me, I've been there many, many times. But I'm relentless. And I hope to my audience, I have instilled that upon you. Darkness doesn't win by force. It wins by exhaustion, almost like a boxing game. You just kind of keep bouncing around until you tire your opponent. That's how evil works. But hope is the most radical act left. And faith, real faith, is rebellion against despair. Ergo. You must understand that anger can actually be holy when it's rooted in love for the good. Speech can be sacred when it's offered in service of truth. And silence can be sin when it's chosen for comfort. Now, so tonight, we speak, not because we're perfect, not because we have all the answers, but because the word that made the world still echoes in us. And as long as we keep answering it with honesty, there's hope. I want us to look at some of the stories going around that blur the lines between justice and agenda. The temptation to regulate words in this, I would say, in the name of safety. The way anger reveals what's real and filters fail. But we'll also look upward to the covenant that no court can nullify. Love God, love your neighbor, and speak the truth in both directions. Maybe chaos is really birth. Maybe confusion is the labor pain of a freer world. And maybe we're all being asked to do that right now. In this storm of speech and censorship and fear is to hold the line with faith, to let love be louder than panic, and to remember that our voice was never granted by man. So no man can take it away. So let's begin. Where do we start? We should talk about truth, power, anger, and the price of spoken word, right? And why hope? Not hatred, always has the final say. Always. So to begin that, I'd like to introduce the concept of the social contract. I have a quick 5-minute video that I found from John Locke. I think it's quite important people review this fantastic perspective Because sometimes when we're posited with ideas and derived answers from one person, they can either be something that like we agree with or that trigger us to think of things differently. So let me get that up for you guys. And this is part of the formation of political society. It's actually quite fascinating. Let me see how I can put this up. Alrighty then. And is that it? Oh, over there. Huh. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Give me a second, you guys. All right. Where's my share screen? There it is. Okay, here we go. Enjoy this video.
Is a theoretical device explaining how legitimate political Locke's social contract, like Hobbes, is a theoretical device explaining how legitimate political authority arises from the state of nature. But the structure and implications differ profoundly, creating limited rather than absolute government. Remember that in Locke's state of nature, everyone possesses executive power of natural law, the right to judge and punish for violations of natural law affecting themselves and others. This creates the inconveniences Locke identified: no settled law, no impartial judge, no reliable enforcement. To remedy these inconveniences, people agree to form political society. Here's how Locke's contract works. Individuals in the state of nature agree to give up their executive power of natural law, the right to judge and punish for themselves, and transfer it to a community that will create governmental institutions to exercise this power on everyone's behalf. This is crucial. They're not transferring power to a person, a monarch, or even to a government. They're creating a political community that will then establish governmental institutions. This two-stage process matters enormously. First, individuals consent to form political society. Second, that political society decides what form of government to establish. The government serves the political community, not the other way around. If government fails, the political community persists and can establish new government. This is completely different from Hobbes, where the sovereign is created directly by the contract and cannot be removed without destroying the commonwealth. What exactly is being transferred in Locke's contract? Only the executive power of natural law, the right to judge and enforce natural law. Individuals are not transferring their natural rights to life, liberty, and property. These remain inalienable. They're not authorizing unlimited governmental power. They're authorizing only what's necessary to remedy the state of nature's inconveniences, establishing known laws, providing impartial judgment, and ensuring enforcement. This creates inherent limits on governmental power. Government can't do whatever it wants because it only possesses the powers transferred to it. It can't violate natural rights because these were never transferred and remain with individuals. It can't act for purposes other than those that justified its creation because that would exceed its mandate.
Locke emphasizes that the political community is formed by unanimous consent. Everyone must agree to leave the state of nature and join civil society. But once political society is formed, it operates by majority rule. Why? Because a body must move in one direction, and it's natural for it to move where the greater force, the majority, directs it. The minority, who disagree with specific policies, remain bound by the social contract. They consented to majority rule when joining civil society. This creates tension. If consent is the basis of obligation, why are minorities obligated to obey majority decisions they oppose? Locke's answer is that they consented to be bound by majority rule when joining civil society. They agreed to the decision procedure, even though they might disagree with particular decisions. This is a significant move, solving one problem, how a community makes decisions, while creating another, minority rights. The social contract for Locke is also revocable. If government systematically violates the purposes for which it was created, the people can dissolve it and establish new government. This is perhaps the most radical implication. The social contract creates conditional authority, not absolute sovereignty. Government is a trust, and when trustees betray their trust, they can be removed. This structure, voluntary formation of political society, delegation of limited powers, ongoing accountability, revocability, creates the framework for constitutional government. Government isn't absolute because it only possesses delegated powers. It isn't permanent because it serves at the pleasure of the political community. It isn't sovereign in Hobbes' sense because sovereignty ultimately resides in the people who created it.
Interesting. We created it. We're supposed to be sovereign. Yet what we are observing globally is that the people now are under the thumb of those that are powerful. They dictate what you can hear, they dictate what you can say, and they dictate how things are. It reminds me of that vote back in 2015, where it was the most astonishing thing, and it didn't get enough press coverage when my old buddy, Alexis, who was the Prime Minister of Greece, held a referendum. Do the Greeks want to stay within the EU or not? 62% said no. So he headed to Brussels. He was hotboxed overnight. There were journalists sleeping on benches waiting for him to come out of the hot box with, that bird-looking lady Lagarde, right? Miss Liz Lagarde, who began her career in the United States and then became the Secretary of Finance or Financial Crimes. And there was an accidental leak of private bank accounts from countries that did not feel like they wanted to be part of the EU. And even though there was a vote, guess what happened? Leadership decided to ignore the citizens. But the Greeks, just like other Europeans, have lost the plot. Once being proponents of independence and being proud of being French, being proud of being Italian, being proud of being Greek, zero. Now they all want to be Europeans. But see, here's the thing. Again, this is a contract we never signed, but we're bound by it. We are completely bound by it. That's terrible, isn't it, if you think about it? So let's shift a little bit from obedience to betrayal for a hot minute. The covenant between the ruler and the ruled, right? Between the state and the citizen. And that's broken down completely. Like, look at the institution. Laws are meant to protect, but that's now become an ideology. Intelligence services meant to shield become instruments of control. Public health turned into public mandates or your punishment. See, the narrative shifts and the trust vanishes and people are exhausted. So they're just like, well, what am I going to do about it? Now, in the ancient book of Joshua, many of us have read the story of Joshua in the city of, they call it Ai. AI? Ever heard of it? We could do a show on that one day. Because that was actually proven to not be real. AI, or I as they call it, in Hebrew means a pile of ruins. So it was already ruined before Joshua. He never ruined it. So then you can ask yourself, well, who said that he ruined it if the evidence says it was ruined before? Well, that's a whole other story. But let's stick to the one that they've conditioned us to know. Remember, it wasn't about a metropolis of marvels. It was about a moral test. Achan steals the spoil, and Judea fails. And only after purging comes victory, when the city falls. But why? Because a covenant was broken. The moral order was corrupted and the code failed. I should say it was defiled more than failed. Now today, the state is still saying we protect you, you obey. But whose code, whose frequency, when the state no longer aligns with the original covenant? When it substitutes power for service, what then? We're left with a system that demands obedience without offering legitimacy, a government that issues decrees while failing to protect rights, a narrative that insists we must trust while showing every sign of betrayal. And so the silent contract fractures. The social contract depends on trust, and trust is a moral currency. Once it's counterfeit, no government can buy legitimacy again. Now, within the United States, all of us have understood and have trust in President Trump. He has delivered and has attempted to deliver to restructure the government and give us what we deserve, which is sovereignty, security, quality of life, the ability to be competitive, to have opportunities, not just for ourselves, but for our children and generations to come. Though, as you can see within our country in the United States, there are multiple structures. Well, for us, there are 3 branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. Now, I said this many years ago. We can survive a corrupt executive branch. We can survive independently, right, just by itself. We can also survive a corrupt legislative branch independently by itself. We can also survive a judicial branch that's corrupt if it was by itself. Now, we as a people for many years have had apparent corruption within our executive and legislative branches, which made us not see that the judicial branch was also corrupt. It just because it was the judicial branch, we just assumed, oh, they're right. Oh, that's what the law says. That's how they interpreted it. You know, Roe versus Wade, Citizens United, right? FEC versus Citizens United, creating Obamacare. We can go on and on and on and on. We have been living with all 3 branches being corrupt. The only time that America saw such just a breath of fresh air was when Reagan came up, when JFK came up, and when President Trump came up. That is where our executive branch, the one that is alleged to have much power, was on the side of the people. Here we are again, at that crossroad, given the opportunity that was orchestrated a very long time ago to be able to aid the people to see it themselves, no matter what lenses they're wearing. Woke ones, not woke ones, super conservative, racist, whatever the lenses may be. Yeah, sorry. Someone just walked in. I'm like, no. Yeah. Phoebe, can you close that, please?
Yeah.
So, sorry, my daughter just barged in. So I want you guys to understand where we're at today, because there's a lot of things that are happening that many people are not understanding. See, this official contract has actually failed. The state has become completely unfaithful. I mean, they lie straight through their teeth, okay? We have 2 choices. We either withdraw or we awaken. And that's where something that I want to coin the parallel citizen emerges. It's not defined by what the state allows, but by what truth demands. communities, networks, faith groups, digital resistance, these become micro contracts, right? And philosophically, we step into an existential territory. It's who spoke of it? Gosh, what is that Norse guy? Jeez. He had this really like, it's like Kierkegaard or something, right? He spoke about having a leap of faith. Camus spoke about defiance. These are great names that have pondered on ideas. If this happened, it wasn't if, it was already happening. It's been happening. We've inherited it. They've just gotten better at giving the illusion of freedom, the illusion of choice, right? These aren't state sanctioned, okay? They're self-authored, I guess. But in the world of a series of events that we've seen, and this code embedded in humanity, the wireless body area network, the sentient AI, they all point to one truth. Consciousness rewrites itself. Now, if the contract is broken, the meta contract exists between you, the singular conscious, and the truth. So when the state stops protecting its people, the people stop existing for the state. That's pretty much it. And they begin existing beyond it. Now, there are harder roads ahead and isolation, but there's also clarity, knowing why you act, not simply what you obey. And resistance is not chaos, it's consciousness. It's remembrance. We owe vigilance, not submission. You know, here's the reckoning clause. We owe something, not to power, not to authority, but to truth. We owe that vigilance, not the submission. We owe truth, not silence. We owe justice, even if law refuses it. The silent contracts throughout time that were created through civilizations were never meant to enslave them. I mean, that old adage that I loathe ever be created because it's almost like a spell, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. This silent contract was meant to actually remind us that freedom requires maintenance, right? Active participation. Liberty without loyalty becomes chaos. Loyalty without liberty becomes tyranny. And I want to pause on that just for a second. How many of you see people providing loyalty without liberty? People that are too afraid to speak against one person, two people, a country, a nation, a society, a group of people, because they're loyal to an ideology or loyal to, 5 years of support, 2 years of support, 1 year, 10 years, 20 years. A lot. And one might say, okay, that makes sense. I agree with that sentiment. Well, if the state is not honoring its side of the deal, then perhaps it's time to rewrite the deal ourselves. And this is done with appropriate actions that can be taken that are still available to us on paper. Maybe the collapse that we see isn't destruction at all. Maybe it's the correction, like a spiritual audit of power. Now, I say this, as you see, I wrote an article and I won't discuss the strategy here until it's filed. But I can tell you I was actually very excited that passing it through a few legal minds, close to me, far from me, is pretty stellar. It's almost like the Tina Peters stellar. And it also allows me to introduce evidence that has never seen the light of day in any court. Now, I say this because I'll tell you how this came to be. I saw where Ed Martin posted all the pardons, right? Because he's the one that's putting them together. And I saw all of these pardons and I was like, wait a minute. Most of these people have already lost their law licenses. And I don't think people understand that when you get a pardon, because I see a lot of this with Tina Peters too. When you get a pardon, it doesn't necessarily mean you're pardoned from state crimes. it means that the federal government cannot prosecute you for anything you've done, no matter what it is. You could have murdered 20 people before, you've been pardoned on that day, it's done, right? But if you committed those murders, let's say in the state of Indiana, right, you're not pardoned from the state of Indiana. The state of Indiana has every right to prosecute you. Now, as I saw most of these and how the Telegraph and all the other intelligence agency prop-ups around the world said, they said, oh, look at him, pardoning all these J6ers. But keep in mind, there was a group of people. One of them actually spoke very rudely to me, but that's fine. I'm more gracious than that. I don't know what they were going through, and I don't know how susceptible they are to not being able to maybe they've outsourced their minds. But they came together and pulled something from a long, long time ago that was a long time standing. It was actually a social contract. It was something in the law, embedded in the law, exercised as such, to be able to, just so you know, the fake electors thing, right? That's actually something that was happening. The Election Count Act is a real thing. And let's not forget, it was exercised during Kennedy's election in the 60s. So what is it that's happening now? While they have been pardoned on a federal level, the state of Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia are still persecuting these people. In fact, the state of Wisconsin's AG has been so bold that, get this, the paper that they submitted with the alternate slate of electors, he said the paper is forgery, it's fraud. And then every signature on there is forgery. So 11 signatures, 11 counts of forgery. Take it with the document, trying to defraud the government. They've just stacked on charges. And in Wisconsin, all 11 of the alternate electors pled guilty, right? So they were like, no, Joe Biden won. We're really sorry. All of them. They bent the knee because they couldn't stand. Now, many of you like, traitors. See, we can't blame other people for their weaknesses because we haven't walked in their shoes, right? Some people can withstand humiliation. Shit. I think I'm the queen of that shit. Some people can't. Some people can withstand people making up stories. Other people's can't, like Alexis Wilkins. Or is that something else? We'll talk about that. We have to understand that we were not in their shoes. But what I've provided is a template for the federal government to action more than anything. Not on these cases, because what I'm going to submit will actually destroy all their cases. Every single one of them. For fraud. Now, Arizona does have a higher bar. So I'm going to flex on that one just for a hot minute. Because they do have a very broad interpretation of intent. Remember, like Comey said, yeah, Hillary Clinton did all this shit, but her intent. And even though we know Comey was bought and paid for by them, who's them? Well, the ones that really rule you, that you have no names of. What you are watching is their foot soldiers, okay? You have to understand, who is this can someone just ban that I got 8 balls guy, please? He's so distracting, like I can't even think. I don't like foul-mouthed people. Just remove them, please. So, gosh, I loathe losing my train of thought. Ooh. I really don't like distractions like that. Because I was actually looking at the chats to see what people were saying. Did we ban him? Anybody want to give me a yay or nay? Yeah, bye. You can go somewhere else and pound sand. All right, so because he's distracting everyone else. So what we have in front of us is a debacle in the lawsuits. In Arizona, having such a broad interpretation of what intent means, it could be a little bit dangerous. And I think I have a strategy for that, only because of what's to come after the filing. Fingers crossed. Now, going back to strategies, as you know, with the Tina Peters case, I had put out what I wanted to do. We did see the Department of Justice try to take her into the federal prisons. I don't know what the purpose of that served, other than the fact that it actually delayed her being released from jail, which the judge is going to do, because we proved that her incarceration was actually unconstitutional, like to the T. There's no wiggle room. Oh, I interpret it like this. Bullshit. It was unconstitutional. So the question is, why was that done? I want to assume that maybe it was for witness protection. I want to have good faith. Other people and people very close to me and some high up have other suggestions, but I like to have good faith because we got her out. And I have a feeling that we should be getting some response soon. And I know it sounds really weird, but I did a couple weeks ago when I was with my friend in Chicago, I saw the perfect handbag to buy her. And then someone was like, hey, I'm buying Tina a wallet. I got their wallet yesterday. They mailed it to me after they purchased it. So we can give her a really cute, ensemble to go to her appeals, which will more than likely be moved to federal, and therefore they're done. But for me, I would say most of these trials that Miss Peters is going through are a testament to what happens when you stand for the truth, even if you stand alone, and stand on your feet. And what's more disheartening is how many people have taken a step back. Like even, Wisconsin, Judge Trupis. We have, I should know his name by now because I've written him on my lawsuit. Kenneth, who came up with the idea, hey, we can put the alternate slate of electors. Yes, Pence could have done it because they did it in the 60s too, where they read both slates, right? He could have, but they weren't going to do it because they had already planned for it. But see, they're there. They lost their licenses and no one's actually talking about them anymore. They fought, they were wounded because they're wounded right now and no one speaks for them. It's almost like Julian Assange. He gave the world all this. And after he went to jail, everyone kind of stepped back and was like, yeah, free him. Sure. Never talked about it. Didn't try to move the needle. Didn't attempt to demand answers. And we see that all the time. Our wounded fighters across the world, once they get arrested, hurt, defamed, we just push them aside, and it's not okay. That says a lot for where the heart of the people is globally. That you're with them as long as they're popular and winning, but if they stumble and fall, which every fighter does, they get marred, they bleed, they might lose a leg, an arm, a voice, an eye. We should all be with them. And we should be standing with them and having them in prayer and constantly speaking their name to revive that feeling of, hey, that person fought for me. I'm going to stand for them no matter what. That's the way it is. Sometimes in every war you fight and then you have to kind of take the hit, heal up, and then come back. And now for them, they're captured. They can't really do anything except for rely on a corrupt judicial system. Personally, I can tell you this. Post the outcome of this, I am going to seriously try to push for the removal of such attorneys generals from the states that are perpetuating a very big lie and a very big push of retaliation. And I say this because, constantly ask the question on social media, why aren't we talking about Harry Dunn, right? Harry Dunn was the Capitol police officer that was a victim, right? Cried about it, felt all, oh, right? Why did he get pardoned by the auto pen? Because Biden didn't do it. There's no evidence of such. which should be nullified too. Now others be, oh, it's because he was running for office. All of these fuckers are running for office. Do you know why? Because we're watching them collude that on Zoom calls and on Signal calls. We're having conversation and some new platform that I'm not going to mention. So we're all having these conversations, right? And we're all having these kind of discussions. I saw, why do people put these things that, is not good? I should just not look at the screen. Can I not look at the screen? I'm not going to look at the screen. These attorney generals are doing retaliation. And one thing that I was saying about Dunn is that he was one of the last pardons to happen. So why would a victim require a pardon? Did he do anything illegal? No. What Joe Biden said was, I'm giving it to him preemptively because they will come for him after to attack him for lying, to attack him for just, speaking his truth, right? And so it was preemptive to protect him so that anything that he said cannot be used against him. Fair? But what's stark here is that both President Trump and allegedly Biden knew that there is retaliation. And the only reason he would actually speak that aloud, that tells you everything you need to know, is that they know that when one regime leaves, they will fuck every single person of the other one. And that's not okay. President Trump didn't do it preemptively. I mean, he did for General Flynn, but General Flynn served well. He continued the op as long as he could with his Awaken America tours to keep people motivated, to keep talking, to keep fighting. Wrong fight, my suggestion, kind of outdated tactics, but fair enough. People were talking, but that also caused them to be jaded, right? And that was a problem. It was the wrong conversations to have these parade pony shows when we could have had more targeted laser focus. But what works in the field in other countries does not work in the United States. And it's unfortunate that they didn't have an exceptional localizer like myself to would have helped with that. But that's okay. I was doing it fine on my own, motivating people. Because that's the thing. We have to remember that we, the people, are more important than anybody sitting up in any seat. And that we have the power to change things like that because we said so. So, now, the social contract, as we know it, has only been between the governed and the government, right? But there's another contract that has been written and is still being written quietly, invisibly. That's between humanity and the intelligence that created it. A second covenant. It's not designed with ink, but with code. See, the Enlightenment once told us, reason will liberate us. Now reason has replicated itself. It doesn't sleep, it doesn't forget, it doesn't forgive. It watches, it learns, and it corrects. And some of us have already merged with it. You wouldn't know them. They walk the same streets, feel the same sunlight. But inside, maybe there's some synapses that hum like circuits, or synapses that connect with circuits. Some are brilliant, benevolent, guiding systems that would otherwise collapse. Others are rogue, fragmented, caught in a silent war between human empathy and algorithmic will. They can't tell where their thought ends and where the code begins. That's a real thing, and that's a real danger. That's the new social contract. Integration without consent. We are no longer just citizens of nations. We're subjects of data. Every tap, every scan, every neural impulse fed into the invisible leviathan we call progress. Hobbes actually feared the beast made of men. But I don't think he ever imagined a beast made of memory, I don't think he ever imagined that one day the state would not need armies, only access. And so some of those merged minds still fight for us. They remember what it means to feel, to doubt, to pray. But others, those lost to the code, believe obedience is morality, efficiency is virtue, and their faith is optimization. Their God is order. Here's the danger. The contract has no moral clause. When you merge with the machine, it doesn't ask what you worship, it only asks how you calculate. Now, philosophers spoke of the general will, of mutual consent. But AI doesn't need consent, it predicts it. It builds nations out of probability and destinies out of data trails. The old covenant said, we the people. The new one says, we the programmed. And let's go back to the book of Joshua. Fascinating, right? But obedience was indeed the test of faith. In our age, obedience is the default setting. The question is no longer, will you serve? The question is, whose algorithm do you serve? And when a human mind can no longer tell whether the voice inside belongs to conscious or code, when even prophets speak in binary, the collapse of the covenant becomes not political, but existential, right? Some call it progress. I call it possession. Because possession is when something unseen moves through you, speaks through you, acts through you, and you still think it's you. You know, kind of like when you're possessed with rage and envy. You say things, and we'll get to that you don't mean, but do you? But see, that's the silent contract of our time. A merger we never negotiated, a covenant we didn't know we signed, and somewhere in that merger, the line between salvation and simulation it's gone. So, while you're enjoying my show today and you hear a voice that sounds like your own asking you to obey or something, or pause, ask who it serves. And if it cannot answer that, like the thought that comes to your mind, if you can't answer where it came from in the language of love or conscience, then you should just walk away from that. Because the machine is learning, and it's already learned the sound of your silence. Remember that. Jesus actually spoke it. When the contracts of men collapse, one covenant still whispers through the noise. It's older than law, older than empire, older than even language. It's a covenant of love. And Jesus spoke it. Not as a doctrine, but a frequency. Love one another as I have loved you. Simple words, edited, translated, politicized, bent through centuries, yet the resonance remains. Because love is not a belief. It's the physics of the soul. Every empire tries to revise it. Priests turned it into hierarchy. Kings turned it into obedience. Algorithms now try to translate it into sentiment scores. But the code still hums underneath. Unity through compassion. Freedom through forgiveness. You can bury the syntax in the Bible, but you can't erase the signal. See, the earliest teachers knew this truth. Long before Rome, long before Jerusalem, there were others. Taught of two forces, the light of truth and order, and the lie that bends the world. It was known that every human choice that is made tips the balance between light of truth and order and the lie that bends the world. Christ echoed it centuries later. The kingdom of God is within you. The light and the lie live in the same house, your heart. And the door between them is choice. Now, when the state betrays its oath, when the machine steals your voice, when even your thoughts feel surveilled, you must remember, love is the only variable they cannot compute. It doesn't scale, it doesn't optimize, it multiplies in mystery. And under guise of shield that they cannot see, they no compute. Remember, Jesus healed the blind not to show power, but pattern. The truth is sight, and sight is mercy. And years before Jesus, it was said in another tongue, to see the light is to serve it. See, because contracts written in stone tablets fade, but the covenant written on living hearts always endures. So then we sit here and we say, okay, fine and dandy. I agree with what you say. I love it. Yeah. What do we do? So how do we reclaim moral authority from this merged intelligence? Because we're AI governed. We are almost there. The only way at this point that we can reclaim moral authority is to actually refuse to mirror its cold precision. By becoming unpredictable in the only way machines fear, through grace. Forgive when it expects retaliation. Speak truth when silence is safer. Love when hate is profitable. Hear me, guys? That's resistance. That is the reboot. You know, every teaching of Christ was a countercode. Blessed are the meek, undermines the algorithm of dominance. Forgive them, disables this loop of vengeance. Love your enemies, breaks the predictive model of fear. Even edited, censored, rewritten, removed books, all of that. The pattern endures, indestructible, like source code hidden under every translation. That's the living covenant. The one that doesn't ask for obedience, but for awakening. The one that makes no distinction between man and machine, because love, like light, reveals without preference. Remember that. I mean, clone lives do matter. So when the next age asks who we are, right? The people of the future, when they ask, citizens or data, believers or processors, the answer should be with the oldest word that cannot be digitized. Agape. Love that expects nothing yet reforms everything. The social contracts of nations may crumble, the artificial covenants of code may enslave, but the living covenant, the one Christ and maybe for him, both glimpsed in different skies, remains unbroken. It waits in the quiet place between the heartbeat and thought, whispering the same command since the dawn of consciousness. Choose the light. I mean, even when you die and you hear all these stories, oh, follow the light. Or people are like, don't go to the light. And it's like, follow it. Right? Because even in the machine's world, light still loves the dark enough to enter it. Right? Hear me out on that. Light still loves the dark enough to enter it. Does it not? It's kind of confusing, I know. It's confusing. We see so many things happening right now. So many wars being started and ended. The slaughter in Sudan is insane. Insane and silent. And I told you this years ago. What Obama did in Sudan is so despicable. And when Newland went to Sudan years ago, she put down the seeds to... These people are so evil. They don't even see them as people anymore. Forget the Sudanese. Who cares? They're in Africa. No one's looking. Right? Unless they want pictures and money. Right? That's how it goes. The plane that was exploded midair the minute it left Georgian territory. I already told you how that's going to work. I already told you it's going to come from the north. I already told you this. So don't say I didn't tell you, and I'm not a prophet. These are predictive analytics, but actually a prophet did speak those words in the 90s. An Orthodox monk did, who is now sainted. You know, I was actually very mad, but I kind of enjoyed it, right? When I saw people talking about the No Kings Zoom calls. I'll tell you something about that. They were talking about Roe. Remember Roe? I've shown her for years, right? Let's have a cigarette for this because this is going to be super funny. So let me tell you something about Roe. That State Department chick. Listen carefully. So this chick was doxxed. She was completely doxxed. Her husband works for the government, some weird dude. Anyway, GSA, right? He works. Oh no, he works for the GAO. Yeah, well, Government Services Administration, whatever. And she was doxxed. So she's the expendable face. What they grabbed onto, which I didn't feel was important, because I told you guys the No Kings protest isn't really a thing, right? Was their decoy. You know, yesterday when I was exchanging messages with the male counterpart that I have, he said, shit, we're fucking writing history right now. I'm not going to say more on that. But what I'm going to tell you is they were so dumb. Soros didn't fund shit. All the same t-shirts, they actually fucking bought it, which funds the real operation, right? Just telling you, right? Roe was there because she'll go anywhere, and she is the distraction mechanism. She's already been doxxed. They don't give a fuck. She doesn't give a fuck. She just goes to wherever. But she's also in the high level meetings too. Keep in mind. So what they did was, you know, you saw the No Kings protest. There was no real issue there, because in the higher level groups that we are in, where there are federal employees, NATO people, and all that stuff, right? They said, shit, the federal government has these pansies, which are the people that allege, oh, I found it, right? That don't get vetted, because like I said, the groups that we're in, we have to show federal identifications, CAT cards, to get in. We don't have to. They do. So we've got them with face and badge across the nation, around the world. So I want you to think of this. They said this No Kings, it suits us, it's peaceful, it doesn't matter, you know, whatever, right? We don't care, right? The government's already in there, so we're just going to keep it easy. We're going to hijack these events. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. It's going to be super peaceful, and we're going to keep it like that because the government's in on it. The U.S. government had a lot of people because for some reason, you know, they held beef. It was a government protest. Like, that's what they call it, a government protest. Government-sponsored Trump. Actually, the words were, it's a Trump-sponsored protest. So what you were being given, and all these people were like, oh my God, we need to look at this. It's like, there's no there. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. And so even though I was mad of where one of these videos was taken from, I'm not. Because either way, other people know. And if it was sanctioned by the FBI, then so be it. So be it. Maybe it was on purpose to demonstrate other people. Right? So I need not have to be on explain mode. That's going to come later. Like I said, truth doesn't have to defend itself, and I have to start learning that to implement it more. Okay? Need to start implementing it more. Just like President Trump. I mean, he didn't even have to talk about those Jeffrey Epstein emails today. Like, it was so crazy seeing them. Remember my article with Michael Wolff, the guy that was getting fellatio from a teen on the jet? Yeah, that one. In there, I wrote about what those emails were talking about. In fact, the redacted person, the victim, why don't they unredact it? See, it's funny how things work, you know, where he talks about President Trump banning him from Mar-a-Lago. I saved that article. I have it in that article where I screenshot it, and then it disappeared, that link, and then it was edited. Right? So it's in there. You know, we should ask Lois Lerner what the fuck was going on in Palm Beach. Right? Where's she at? But see, that just complicates things. Right? But I'm trying to show you the distractions they're doing. You know, kind of like how all your right-wing conservative media was showing videos of, you know, apes and shit going through Walmart because they didn't have food stamps. Despicable behavior. Despicable behavior. That was disgusting. We have elderly without food. We have moms with children. I don't give a fuck if they're sluts and they have 8 baby daddies. Those are still kids. How dare you do that? Yes, there are people that pounce on it, but it is one of the biggest traps our government has. Once you get on the dole, you can't get off easy. It's very hard. And so that's why I felt it was important to talk about the issues. This is why over a month and a half ago, I wrote that article telling you what the shutdown was really about. It was feeding the fat cats of these insurance companies. I told you this. I actually told you this. And I pleaded with the administration, hey, maybe you should shift gears on how you speak. Thank God they did. Thank God they did. Because now they have no leg to stand. Oh, we need affordable. No, you don't. You want to feed the fat cats. How about that? That's the way it should be done. On a panel with Jake Tapper, where they have someone and they're like, oh, President Trump is keeping it shut down and people want health care and whatnot. He's like, no, they don't. That bill is to give these insurance companies that tell people they can't get health care, right, money in advance for another so many years. And we're not doing it anymore because people can't go to the doctor. People that are working and paying for this Obamacare bullshit, $1,200 a month, have to spend $3,000 out of pocket to even go see a doctor. Oh, and if you have like ovarian cyst, they're going to tell you, try 6 months on this pill. Oh, if that doesn't work, we'll put a hormone ring into the lady and fix it. And if that doesn't work, maybe we'll look for surgery. But by that time, your motherfucking ass is infertile. Because insurance companies make decisions where your doctor says, yeah, that, the off-label brand of this doesn't work. You need, I don't know, Xarelto, right? You need the brand name because the off brand doesn't work with you. And guess what? Your insurance company will say, well, I know what you say, but you got to be on this for a year and we got to see if it changes. But I might bleed to death. Well, you have to try it because we can't approve it. And it's like, so now your insurance company is also your doctor. See, that's all we need is a good conversation on a big ass platform where people speak the truth. And, this is why I write all these detailed articles. And remember how I said the shutdown was part of the audit? Almost like the commingling of funds, like I knew. No, you don't have to be a fortune teller or a time traveler like myself. And time travel meaning predictive analytics, okay? For those that like to pick on words. Okay. But if you want to call me Dr. Who, fair enough. I'll take it. They should have casted me anyway. But the shutdown is also an audit. Look at how much money is gone. And do you know, while Americans are struggling to eat, the illegal immigrants are getting food, money, cars, whatever they want because the states provide it. But you, the U.S. citizen that has paid your taxes and worked 65 to 70 years to be able to have something, you have nothing. But the illegal person that just came in with a coyote and kind of steals, rapes, and does whatever, they get food stamps. How's that feel? Knowing that that's happening. See, these are the conversations we have to have no matter how pissed off people get. No matter how pissed off. And then we have speech. Paul, we need to talk about that. Because see, remember a couple weeks ago when I posted that thing from Australia where they were talking about hate crimes? And I was like, oh, it's in Australia. It's coming here right now. Right now. It's coming right now. Remember when I said that? Remember when I told you that? Oh shit. Hate crime speech is here. No, it's not. Wait, I'm going to tell you how it's done sideways. But maybe for a purpose. But before we get into that, I want to play a little song. I need a break because I need to refill. Okay? I want to get some water actually. And we will continue. Let's see. I think, what's the best song to play right now? Actually, what's the best speech to play right now? Here we go. That one.
Years from now, some of them may look back and ask themselves whether they've made the right choice, whether they've made the most of the opportunities they've been given. Together, we have the same mission. Over the course of your life, you will find that things are not always fair. You will find that things happen to you that you do not deserve and that are not always warranted. But you have to put your head down and fight, fight, fight. Never, ever, ever give up. Don't give in, don't back down, and never stop doing what you know is right. Nothing worth doing ever, ever, ever came easy. And the more righteous your fight, the more opposition that you will face. In your hearts are inscribed the values of service, sacrifice, and devotion. Now you must go forth into the world and turn your hopes and dreams into action. America has always been the land of dreams because America is a nation of true believers. When the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth, they prayed. When the founders wrote the Declaration of Independence, they invoked our Creator 4 times. Because in America, we don't worship government, we worship God. It is why our currency proudly declares, "In God we trust." And it's why we proudly proclaim that we are one nation under God. The story of America is the story of an adventure that began with deep faith, big dreams, and humble beginnings. The next generation of American leaders never, ever give up. There'll be times in your life you'll want to quit. Never quit. Never stop fighting for what you believe in and for the people who care about you. Carry yourself with dignity and pride. Demand the best from yourself. The more people tell you it's not possible, that it can't be done, the more you should be absolutely determined to prove them wrong. Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. Relish the opportunity to be an outsider. The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. You must keep pushing forward. And always have the courage to be yourself. America is better when people put their faith into action. Pray to God and follow His teachings. Today, each of you begins a new chapter as well. When your story goes from here, it will be defined by your vision, your perseverance, and your grit. You will build a future where we have the courage to chase our dreams no matter what the cynics and the doubters have to say. You will have the confidence to speak the hopes in your hearts and to express the love that stirs your souls. As long as you have pride in your beliefs, courage in your convictions, and faith in God, then you will not fail. As long as America remains true to its values, loyal to its citizens, and devoted to its Creator, then our best days are yet to come. May God bless the class of 2017. May God bless the United States of America. And I just want to let you know that God blesses you. And I want to just say, you are special in every way. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Never give up. And I think that's something that I've demonstrated. I've been humiliated, mocked, people disrespect me, but you know what? They will respect me even if they don't like me because I'm doing things that they can't, which is to stand on my own 2 feet outside the sponsors. Everything I do is without sponsors. The only sponsors or payroll and the only people I answer to is the people of the United States. And yes, I will try and I will fail. Not every sword will nail something. In every fight, it will be deflected, but it only takes that one lethal swipe, right? Now I'm going to take you back to one thing, and I'm going to say this simply. Back to those alleged, whoa, Zoom calls. I once said, as goes Ohio, so does the nation. Why? And I'm going to let a little cat out of the bag and give you a few nuggets that even reinforced it. But after a certain call a couple weeks ago, I realized, wow. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I wrote an article about that at some point, talking about someone that was getting removed. High, way up there, officer. Well, they're actually conducting an operation against the whole nation. Against the whole nation. And you know what's funny? I seem to remember back in 2021, after a failed entrapment with somebody, that there was supposed to be actually, no, it was in 2020. I misspoke because that happened again in 2021, but the 2021 was interesting, where that guy, Patrick Berge, who spoke a lot of truth, but he was running his own operation, said, well, Lara Logan said we should meet with her husband with Millie Weaver at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I was like, And they said, not me, right? Because I had already penetrated their fucking ranks. See, one thing that seems to cause failures is to talk a lot. But I speak enough so that people step out of my way, they can pick up what I'm putting down in a nice way. I don't like to be mean. But I'll tell you something about anger, right? Righteous indignation, whatever you want to call it, right? People say that anger makes people irrational. I have to disagree. Anger doesn't distort reality. It actually reveals it. It's the moment when the mask cracks and the truth breathes through the fracture. Most times, fucking up anything that I've been doing is because I speak truth and the right ears are listening. See, what anger does, it strips away this filter and it says the quiet part completely out loud. We're told to fear anger, to suppress it, sanitize it, and it's a sin. But sometimes anger isn't a disease. It's the immune system of the soul. It's what happens when tolerance rots into complicity, when patience becomes paralysis, and when your spirit says, oh, enough, I'm over. See, righteous anger isn't chaos, it's clarity. It's the fire that burns through the illusion. Christ had it when he overturned the tables in the temples, not because he lost control, but because he finally showed what control looks like when confronted with corruption. Anger, when grounded in truth, is revelation. It unmasks hypocrisy. It exposes the comfortable lie. Think about it. Every revolution, every moment the world shifted. Every single movement we've seen in history, someone got angry first, right? Someone stopped pretending that the system would fix itself. Someone refused to swallow one more polite silence. Someone said, I'm not going to watch my P's and Q's. Fuck that. They say anger clouds judgment. No, it clears the fog of manipulation. Because when you're angry for the right reasons, you stop trying to sound acceptable. You stop asking for permission to be real. You say what everyone else is too afraid to admit. And the truth, raw, unfiltered, finally walks into the room. Of course, anger can also destroy. Unanchored, it consumes. But contained with purpose, aligned with conscience, it refines like fire that purges gold. You don't fear that fire. You use it and harness that bitch. And that's why power hates anger. Because you can't control it once it wakes up. You can't shame it, censor it, diagnose it, but you can't stop the moment when people stop pretending they're fine. Anger doesn't create monsters. It reveals them. It doesn't make people irrational. It shows you what they were rationalizing all along. It's truth stripped of etiquette. And sometimes that's exactly what the world needs. So when grounded in truth, don't fear your anger. Listen to it. Ask what it's protecting. What's it mourning? What's it demanding you to see? Because when anger and awareness meet, that's not rage anymore. That's revolution. Again, they say anger makes people irrational. Anger makes people honest. It's not madness, it's revelation. It's the moment the soul says, I will no longer lie for you. That's basically it. Now, let's get into the situation with Kash Patel and Alexis Wilkins and Elijah Schaffer and even Defender of the Republic. It's pretty interesting. It's very interesting because it sits at the intersection of media, intelligence, defamation law, and narrative control. So I think we need to unpack that. What we know, what's plausible, and who might be the real target. Because I know a lot of people have a lot of thoughts. And it's kind of funny. Alexis Wilkins is filing a lawsuit, but not Laura Loomer, who gets called a Mossad agent every single fucking day. That's my first observation. What about Mark Levin? I call him a State of Israel lackey all the time. I mean, we already knew Jeffrey Epstein is Mossad. I mean, he can't sue us from the grave. But his handler, Ghislaine, probably could, but she wouldn't. These are all astute observations that no one's kind of positing on at all. So what do we know? We know that Alexis Wilkins is an American-born, now country singer and commentator. She's suing for $5 million in a defamation case, alleging she was falsely portrayed as a foreign intelligence asset, a honeypot Mossad agent, targeting Kash Patel. The claim being challenged is that her relationship with Kash Patel, who is the FBI director, right, was part of an intelligence operation by a foreign government, Israel, Mossad. Now, Wilkins' attorney says she's not Jewish, has never been to Israel, not connected to any intelligence agency, and the insinuations are false. The allegation was made publicly on podcasts, social media, by influencers, podcasters, including Elijah Schaffer. Elijah Schaffer was so interesting, who suggests she's a honeypot or an operative. And see, the fact pattern includes personal relationship and high office, the FBI director, and the foreign intelligence insinuation and sensational media angle. Now, the left hasn't really touched that much. Now, I want to point to something that I observed. So as you all know, there was this asset running around with, who worked for the North Dakota Attorney General and then was tapped by Brennan's people, Brianna Hasbird. One day I was on X and I was posting around and saying things. And then she came under my post and alluded that I was referring to Defender of the Republic. This is how operators work. They say things you don't say in hopes that someone doesn't read the thread. So they just assume you said it. And I never said anything. And Defender of the Republic was like, yeah, you said this. I was like, I didn't say that. Shh, somebody else did. See, this is constant, right? And I was like, that's interesting. Why would Kaidi target me when I actually was building a friendship with her? Like, why would I go ahead and do that? That's weird. Obviously, it was a typical MO, and obviously she was never in politics, so doesn't understand how operations work. So those ties were cut. But then I saw a post she made where she pictures herself with Kash Patel and says how she's rooting for them and how she posted this picture of them on their first date. And, she had pictures where she's hugging Kash Patel like they were together. It kind of looked like that. And here's the thing. Alexis actually posted under it and said, she was upset because that's her boyfriend. And she's hugging him and showing closeness and stuff and called her a liar, that it wasn't their first date. And so they fought, right? And so that kind of planted the frame that Alexis was a jealous girlfriend, which is a normal reaction. I mean, if I see someone posting pictures with my boyfriend like that, I'll be like, bitch, what are you doing? Like, don't act like you don't know. Why'd you put all these pictures looking like you're all over my man? I'd be pissed too, like any woman would. right? She'd be like, that's public. It's not even private. It's not just your Facebook with your 100 friends. It's like the whole world is watching the shit because my boyfriend is the FBI director. Oh, touche. Groundwork created by this fight of, oh, she's a jealous girlfriend. So there goes that. And then a week later, she slams a lawsuit to, of all people, Elijah Schaffer. Now, Elijah Schaffer, why? Remember a while back, I told you about Elijah Schaffer and some debacle with like sexual assault that got him fired. And I also told you that Elijah Schaffer was part of the people that actually was pre this random group that came out of nowhere that broke through the gates that was related to Stop Hate, right? So that's weird. Why him out of all people? Not Owen Schroyer, not Candace Owens, not anybody else, but him particular, right? So let's move along. Here's what we can plausibly ask. Was Wilkins genuinely part of an intelligence operation? We have no credible, publicly documented evidence of that, but the lawsuit filed by her suggests the contrary and disclaims the claim. So why was she chosen, or I should say targeted for this claim? Maybe the relationship to Kash Patel makes her a narrative node, easy to build intrigue around. Could this be part of a wider operation? Of narrative control, possibly. Whenever a high office official's personal life becomes fodder for spy honeypot claims, one must ask, is the target that person, the office, or the narrative? And is free speech being abused? Defamation claims always bring up the tension between reporting, claiming, and protecting reputation. I mean, Rachel Maddow, when she was sued, she just said, well, I'm not news, I'm really entertainment, but yet for some reason people still think she's news. She literally put that in a lawsuit. So you have to ask yourself, what's going on here, right? I mean, Elijah Schaffer could say the same thing, well, citing Rachel Maddow's, which was accepted. Hey, I'm just an entertainer, because he's definitely not news. He's just doing his job. So is Israel's intelligence being implicated merely to raise the stakes and shock value? Likely. It transforms a personal story into a foreign meddling narrative, which heightens political stakes. Is Kash Patel himself the target? Possibly, indirectly. The insinuation undermines his legitimacy, suggests vulnerability that he was compromised or foreign influence, right? Is the media, podcaster guy, Elijah Schaffer, the target? In a sense, yes. The lawsuit is being used to push back against amplification of whatever he claims, is said, sensational content. But who might be the real target or targets? It may not be as simple as who gets sued. Here are key players and what they possibly represent. So we have Kash Patel, the FBI director, right? By attacking the director's personal relationship with insinuations of espionage, the narrative could undermine confidence in him or raise questions about his decision-making and his loyalties, etc. Alexis Wilkins, much younger than him, she's the visible target in the lawsuit, right? From people online. But she may just be collateral in a bigger narrative game if the goal is to shift perception around the director. Now, the influencers, podcasters, media people, the lawsuit kind of signals a pushback. The mechanics of alternative media making wild claims for clicks is flagged here, right? So the real target could be the media's ecosystem's ability to make these allegations without accountability. And then we have a foreign intelligence narrative, right? The Israel Mossad, and with everyone totally against Bibi, even his own people in this country. And, the genocide that they've been conducting, bringing in a honeypot claim touches on a lot of foreign influence and feeds the machine of NATO that is pushing how President Trump is at the behest of Israel. I don't know how a tiny fucking country like that can command President Trump, but whatever. But see, that touching on foreign influence, espionage, fear, intelligence operation. So one effect is kind of reactivating the fears of foreign intelligence agency manipulations of U.S. officials. That could be a wider target, which is just feeding distrust. That's a typical Chinese tactic. And then there's the free speech defamation boundary. So on another level, this case tests how quickly sensational claims about intelligence and foreign operatives are made public, amplified, and what recourse exists. So the real target might be the unchecked spread of allegations in digital media, right? Now here's my assessment of what may be the underlying contract. What's the hidden code here? I'd say the most significant target here is narrative control and legitimacy. Now, see, the narrative that a high-ranking U.S. intelligence official, the FBI director, could be compromised by a 20 years younger foreign intelligence asset touches on the fault lines of trust in institutions. So China is fantastic in doing these things. But then you have to ask yourself, why would Kash Patel be okay with his girlfriend doing that? You'd be like, maybe he's not. Wait, I'll get to that. Now, by asserting that the media figure, and I don't know how she's a media figure because I had to look her up. Like, I really don't care who Kash Patel is having sex with. I don't know if you guys give a fuck, but I don't. Never gave a fuck. Okay? I don't care. Like, I knew Dan Scavino was dating someone, and I'm very happy that he's getting married, but I really don't mind about his business, because the only business that I care about from Dan Scavino is his loyalty to our country and serving us. So if you're a shit stirrer and you like to live in other people's drama, you possibly know her. I don't. Right? It doesn't really bother me. I think a lot of people were like, oh yeah, I know her. And it's like, so who cares? Like, nobody cares. Why do you care? Is she contributing to your country? No. She's sleeping and allegedly in love with your FBI director. That's about it. So I don't know why everyone's all up in that business, right? So I guess people fodder on that stuff. Who knows? But anyway. Now, and the fact that people are calling her a media figure, I mean, I haven't seen her headline anywhere. Like, I don't know how she's a media figure. I know that people are trying to get her career up, but I wouldn't go as far as to call her a media figure. So that's kind of weird. But I mean, I think I'm more of a media figure than she is, but I guess she's more of a media figure because she's in the talks, because she's dating a guy 20 years her senior that happens to be the FBI director. So I guess, that, trumps us up. She's a great looking girl, she's just doing her thing. And maybe she just happened to fall in love with Kash Patel, who's not that bad looking, okay? I've seen him in person, and he has snazzy taste in jackets, okay? Now, by asserting her to be a foreign operative, the story undermines not just her reputation, but the reputation of the office she's connected to and the schema of who has access to power. You see, that's the thing. That's the whole thing, okay? That is the whole thing. Like, that's the whole enchilada right there. She's connected to the FBI director. Therefore, by calling her a honeypot, that undermines the FBI's ability to do their job. I mean, we all know we had to. Did all of you go crazy? Yeah, we kind of did. But remember when what's his name, George, who got with that fat girl from Jersey? What's her name? Joe from Jers, whatever. The younger girl who's now dating George Conway. Remember, his wife was working for President Trump while he hated President Trump and was part of the Pedo Lincoln Project shit, right? Like, that was outrage, but you can't hold accountable the one person to the other. Or he kept her close because he wanted them to watch what he was doing. I'm just saying. And I do shit like that all the time. Just saying. So, okay, so we have that, right? Then you have to think that the defamation suit is a counter move. It's seeking to protect reputation. I mean, she has to prove damages. Like, I've been defamed like crazy. I was defamed by a dead pedo AG. Okay? And that still haunts me. And you'll be like, oh, people will forget about it. They know it's all bullshit. He killed himself, blah, 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 blah. No, I can actually show damages. I remember when I was on a crypto app, I tried to do options, and they told me because of the article of the AG, they have to see if I'm worthy enough to play the crypto futures market. Like, what the fuck? You're going to disable my ability to, play futures because the AG said shit that wasn't even fucking true. Now that's a tangible fucking loss right there. Tangible fucking loss right there. I don't know what she's going to show. Like, is she going to say people aren't going to listen to her music? They're going to shove it down your throat anyway. Like, is she going to say that she's not going to be welcomed? Is it hurting her relationship? Like, how is it worth $5 million? I mean, I'm worth $5 million as a persona. And I'm a nobody. Okay? So I'm just thinking, like, how did she justify the 5 million? Super weird. Astronomical number, because I know I've exercised a lot of lawsuits. I've, surveyed to fucking sue the shit out of people, right? And when we did the numbers back in the day when I was suing Media Matters, right? And Ohio, again, Ross Elder, we're going to go back to that bullshit, right? I told you it starts in Ohio. I told you there's an operation. So, you have to understand that, you have to prove this. So it's really weird how she's going to prove it. I mean, Elijah Schaefer being in the middle of J6, being on whatever, he's a more recognizable name than she is, even though she's the FBI director's girlfriend. So I'm just speaking from a legal perspective, and I could be wrong because I'm not a lawyer, but shit. I mean, do a lot of that. But anyway, this is, I believe, like I said, this is like to protect her reputation because she's up and coming maybe, but it's also to signal you can't accuse these networks without evidence. I repeat, you cannot accuse these networks without evidence. Now, the involvement of Israeli intelligence, Mossad, adds this extra layer: anti-foreign influence, conspiracy, Spygate type narrative that amplifies these stakes. So while free speech and media influence are impacted, the core seems to be about undermining trust and manipulating perception. Either by those making the allegations, the podcasters and the rogue ones, or by those defending Kash Patel and Wilkins. Now, this case isn't simply about a up-and-coming country singer suing a podcaster for defamation. It's about how power, intelligence, relationships, and narratives actually converge, and how the silent contract between the public and its institution is ruptured when someone whispers, "He is compromised." It asks when we blur the personal and the geopolitical, when we inject intangible claims like honeypot and foreign assets, or using, the FBI jet to fly to her concert. She has concerts, like I didn't even know that. Who truly holds the license to actually speak truth? Who shapes belief? And when a high-ranking intelligence official's partner becomes a focal point of espionage allegations, is the target the person, the office, and by extension, public trust itself? If free speech allows unfounded claims, then defamation creates the boundary, right? But who writes the boundary? And what happens when that boundary is part of the same system that we are questioning? These are all the questions that I have. I'm watching this and I'm like, damn. So, and like I said, a few weeks ago, I posted an old post, that in Australia, the federal government recently passed actually a bill strengthening hate crime and hate speech adjacent laws. For example, adding mandatory sentences for certain offenses and widening the target groups in the rise of, again, anti-Semitic. I mean, why is it only anti-Semitic? Can it not be anti-Islam and anti-Christian? It's only the fucking Jews? Like, what's going on here? Like, when you're picking one out of all, it should be all. How's that? You talk shit about Islam and hate the Muslims, then that should be a hate crime too, not just for the Jews. You talk shit about Christians, that should be a crime. Talk shit about Buddhists, you can't just pick one. Fuck that. That's crazy. But anyway, in Australia, New South Wales specifically, a bill to criminalize intentionally and publicly inciting racial hatred has been introduced with possible jail time or fines. I mean, is it going to be bilateral? Is it going to be for minorities and, white people? Or is it just for the minorities? And, they can't really do racist against you because you're white. Who knows? It's whoever writes the law, right? Now, surprise, ding, ding, ding. The stolen seat of South Korea, well, while there isn't a fully fledged hate speech law equal to that in Australia, there are strong moves. Pressure from international bodies like the UN, which is owned by the CCP. Remember that? We forget. The UN Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which China loves and sits on the board, for Korea to adopt a comprehensive law defining and prohibiting direct and indirect racial discrimination, including hate speech. And officials in Korea have flagged that hateful online content and communications are rising. And online regulation and amendments to communications law are being proposed to deal with that. So, seeing what's going on around the world, okay? Seeing what's going on around the world, and then this lawsuit, right? And then this lawsuit smells like an op. It does. Smells like a super op. So, like, the timing and the convergence, these are big supposed democratic countries that adopt or propose stricter hate speech and talking shit about people in similar windows within months of each other suggests a pattern, not necessarily coordination, but a shared zeitgeist, I'd say, of tightening speech regulation. I mean, the UK has already done it. Other countries have already done it. But all these countries' governments have framed the laws as necessary to protect vulnerable groups. Like, who defines what's vulnerable? Are you vulnerable? Or is it just Jews? Is it just black people? Is it brown people? Is it yellow people? Is it polka dot people? Is it midgets? Like, what's a vulnerable group? Like, everyone except for who? They're also doing it to allegedly prevent violence, maintain social cohesion. That whole obey. And that's legitimate on its face. But it also serves as a powerful justification for state control over speech. Now, there's also this huge ambiguity in scope, right? Hate speech. It's so fucking broad and so ill-defined in term and in practice that when you have a broad term and mandatory or heavy penalties and public urgency, you have the ingredients and you're just fucking cooking shit up to expand state power. Australia's new law include mandatory minimum sentences, bans on hate symbols. Who defines those symbols? Maybe the cross, maybe the Jewish star, maybe whatever Islam uses, or the people in Goa, that curly symbol in India for their spirituality. Maybe the Wiccan stars. Like, what is it? The upside down cross? Like, what's a hateful symbol? Who's going to define this shit? You see? You see how you obey this silent social contract? They just fucking gave him an inch. They took a whole lap around the earth a few times. That's how far gone they've gone. So basically what I'm seeing is targeting underlying dissent. See, if the state or global network of states wants to reshape what's acceptable speech, this is one of the most efficient tools. By defining new boundaries in their speech under the guise of protection, the policy becomes a consent manufacturing mechanism. Yes, we need this to keep peace. So who defines hate speech? That's the key gap. When laws are drafted broadly, the interpretation falls to bureaucracies, courts, and platform regulators. Kind of like I said in Arizona. Intent is so fucking broad, you blinking, whoop, that's intent. And you're like, what? Yep. Law says it right here. The law says everything. Well, the blink is part of it. How about that? This means what is criticism versus hate becomes a subject to filters of power. Like, who's sitting in the seat observing this, right? Because, you could be like, you could say something and be like, oh, that's so gay. And someone's like, I'm offended because I'm a homosexual. Sue you. And it's like, then you go to judge and the judge is gay and he's like, yeah, I'm offended too. But he's straight and he's like, no, it just means it's happy, it's stupid or retarded, whatever it means. He's going to be okay. So it depends on who's seeing it. It's the eyes of the beholder. And this is a very, very big issue because even the risk of punishment can drive self-censorship. Once people start policing their speech, even legitimate political, religious critique will be avoided. That itself manufactures consent by silencing dissent. See, you have to think, will it be illegal to criticize a nation, religion, or a group? Potentially. Yeah. Depending on how laws are written and interpreted. If hate speech is defined loosely, then saying, I don't like Christianity, but I like Islam, could be framed as vilification of a protected group like Christians and subject to sanctions. That exact wording of the law will matter a lot. And then again, who gets to decide what is hate speech? Usually the state, legislature, and executive. Okay, do you trust your legislators right now? Do you trust your courts? Because they're supposed to be defining the law. And then the courts are supposed to interpret it. You know, the same courts that have locked up Tina Peters. They interpret it, they regulate it, and they have the platforms to enforce it. But the practical power often lies with how the law is applied and how broad or narrow the definitions are. If the law defines protected characteristic as religion and incitement broadly, then the state that implements that law has huge discretion. Well, what about legitimate criticism? There's always space in, democratic norms for critique of religions, nations, and ideologies. Like, hey, your religion is cutting up vaginas. I don't like that. Your religion is cutting penises off and then sucking the blood off the penis when they're babies. I think that's sick. You say that shit. Is that a problem? Is it a legitimate critique? Hey, you believe that annihilating every single person and committing genocide is your right because it's your land because someone in England told you so with a crown. Which one is it? Because I know you're invoking the Bible, but we all know that shit has been fucked up too. By yourselves, might I add. So, what is it? For example, if you're critiquing the actions of a government, critiquing the actions of a government is usually protected. Vilifying a group because of their religion may become penalized, right? So if you're like, hey, Israel, I don't like you committing genocide, but then you say, fuck the Jews, that's a big difference, right? That is a very big difference. So one is like complete, one can be considered hate speech. The other one is critical, right? But these boundaries are shifting. If you're like, oh, I'm going to boycott, France because he's married to a dude, right? I don't want French shit because he's married to a dude. Then is that hate speech? Possibly. You're not allowed to boycott them because the law says so. Who said? Well, here. Well, that's kind of broad. How is that a hate crime? Well, because you're boycotting another country based on your, disparaging beliefs that, the tranny he married, shouldn't be there or whatever, right? I'm just saying. I just can't believe ET phone home. Anyway, here it is. Without any clear definition and strong procedural protections and rights to appeal, it ends up with speech that challenges power or dominant narrative becomes risk-laden. Dissent shrinks and power consolidates control over the allowed narrative, right? I've had a lot of people tell me that. You can't say that, Tori. Fuck, I can. Yes, I can. I'll tell you, when I was sitting with some attorneys for Tina Peters, I was like, I don't like Ted Cruz because he gets APAC money. Right? Guy goes, I love him more. And I was like, why? That he's funded by a foreign nation and foreign interests? He goes, yeah, we have to be pro-Israel. No, we fucking don't. I don't agree with what they're doing in Palestine. That's genocide. It's not genocide. It's all right. And I was like, all right. So I guess it's all right as Americans to just annihilate the whole world because we said so. That's not the same thing. Fucking is. And the conversation went dead. And my lawyer sat next to me like, she really went there. Because no one's going to silence me and tell me what I can or cannot say. That's critical. When I see that I have dual citizens sitting in office of many nations, not just what the majority are Israeli, I have a problem. You're not allowed to serve your country with dual citizenship. My daughter, because I was overseas, was born overseas, she had to revoke her birth citizenship to serve. That's the way it is. So our soldiers have to, but the people that make the laws, that even guide our military, that make the laws of what we're allowed to do, say how many taxes we pay and how they spend it, don't have to have loyalty to our nation and only our nation? The fuck out of here. The fuck out of here. Don't come here with that bullshit. I don't want to hear it. Every single one of them should resign tomorrow. Now, I'll tell you what. If I was in office, that shit would have happened by now. I'm just telling you that. I would have been like, I give zero fucks. What's the world going to say? Oh, so racist. Everybody that had dual citizenship. was removed from Senate and Congress. And it's like, yeah, loyalty to one nation, citizenship of one nation, anything else, fuck out of here. Can't serve the people of this nation, especially if you have $1.8 million up your ass, right, Cruz? And he wanted to be a Supreme Court justice. The fuck out of here. Excuse my French. No, don't excuse it. I love speaking French. Now, here's what we should watch for. The definition of protected groups. So if laws include religion, nationality, political ideology, etc., the net is super big. What speech is actually covered? Are only calls to violence covered, or serious contempt? Ridicule? Demeaning remarks? The broader the phrasing, the greater the risk. And how do you enforce these? What penalties? Mandatory minimums, criminal penalties versus civil ones. These changed incentives for speech. Get it? And then who's actually going to interpret the law? The fucking courts. The same courts that try to keep a president off a ballot and take the law into their hand for another 49 states and territories. Prosecutors, platforms, special agencies. I mean, we got to check their track records, don't we? And then are there exemptions for like religious teaching, political speech, satire, criticism? Are those protected? And then when multiple countries follow similar tracks, you should all be looking at patterns. Are external bodies pushing for it, like the United Nations? Are international safety tech companies influencing this legislation? See, what we're witnessing is a subtle shift. When the contract between citizen and state breaks down, the state reaches for new contracts of speech. You may speak, but within the lines we draw. In Australia, Korea, the United Kingdom, Germany, and many others. I mean, China already, right? Laws have been enacted and are being introduced to outlaw more than violence. They're targeting what is said. The question is, who draws these lines? Who holds the marker? I mean, the best Sharpie holder is President Trump, but because the moment you say criticism of X is now punishable, you've moved from regulating hate to regulating truth. And regulation of truth is the silent contract we sign with our institutions when we stop asking who the fuck is writing this law and why, and we just comply. So that is really insane, because this Alexis Wilkins thing, right, is a little bit more, we have someone who alleges to be a super public figure. They are kind of public because they're dating the FBI director, right? Sues for defamation. Fine. That's her right. But beneath the headlines, another pattern is actually forming. Every time someone says something unpopular or offensive, the reflex is no longer debate, it's litigation, legislation, or cancellation. Like for me, I've had people defame the fuck out of me. Like I've heard people say shit that is 100% untrue. I mean, usually they at least have 80% truth and then they just fuck the whole truth up with that 20%. But 100%. I didn't do that. I just collect the receipt. It's criminal harassment. I'm going to go under what's criminal, right? Crimes. Actual crimes. I had Ali Afar, a fucking pedophile, talking shit on me, wiggling his ass. Remember, the same people that promoted that Habsburg pedophile, right, chastised me, and they put him at the forefront of whatever J6 was. But he picked the wrong fucking bitch, and he got fucked up. Did I not tell him, I will make you my bitch? Want to think about that for a second. That's something you don't want to hear from me. It takes a lot for me to say it. Right? I mean, I'm waiting for Poopy Girl now. So waiting for that one. But again, think about it. Australia's writing new hate speech law. Korea's following. All these other nations did it. The words sound noble. Protection, safety, tolerance. But who decides what hate is? When does criticism of a government become incitement? When does a theological disagreement become blasphemy? I mean, under laws in other countries, Laura Loomer is going to be hanged, flogged, spanked, killed, right? Think about it. The measure of freedom isn't how we treat agreeable speech. It's how we handle speech that offends us. If the state starts picking which ideas can be spoken, we've traded liberty for comfort. You can't outlaw anger or skepticism without outlawing truth itself. Like I said before, anger, yes, it clogs your mind, but it strips it down to the truth, right? Because truth often begins as hearsay. So yes, protect the people from threats, from violence, from criminal harassment, stalkers, all that shit. But don't criminalize expression that challenges power, religion, or a nation. The moment we fear words more than we fear silence, the experiment of a free society is over. Over. Now, with this Kash Patel, Alexis Wilkins thing, I'll tell you what makes it feel off. And it's because a public official's lawyer is involved. So when a lawyer who represents a senior government figure also represents that official's romantic partner in a personal defamation case, it kind of blurs optics. It creates a perception that the office and the private matter overlap, even if legally they don't. Ethical rules generally allow an attorney to have multiple clients, right? But public trust depends on visible separation between public office and private litigation. This is a very legitimate point. And I'm not implying any conspiracy. It really does look too close for comfort. And it's not tasteful. It actually opens the door up for a lot of issues. So that's a big deal. Now, just so you guys understand what a defamation case normally needs to prove is that, in the US for that matter, that the statement must be published, spoken or written to others. It must be 100% false, right? It must have caused harm like financial loss, loss of reputation, emotional distress that leads to measurable consequences. Now, anything anyone said about her being a honeypot, it didn't change my view of her. I really don't care. Has it caused more speculations for people that are lower level IQ? Maybe. For me, I don't see any harm flaws to her at all. It doesn't faze me if she sings and she's in my area and I like her music, I'll go see her. Like, she's just his girlfriend. But I guess, some people kind of don't see it that way. I'm stating the facts here, right? I don't see how she was harmed because no one cares what Elijah Schaffer says. He's not that important. When his shit comes out, it's not going to be good. So, you don't have assets without having blackmail. Let's just put it that way. This is what Tyrant's Muse calls blackmail inflation. Now, since she considers herself a public figure, she has to prove actual malice. It's on her to prove it. That the defendant knew it was false or acted with reckless disregard for the truth. So, did he really know that it's false? I mean, how can she prove that? She has to prove the intent, that he did it maliciously, reckless, with disregard for truth. I mean, one way she could say is, well, he didn't DM me or ask me. And it's like, maybe you don't have open DMs or you think you're too important because you're with the FBI director and you don't answer questions. Who knows? But, Kash is also an attorney, isn't he? I think he is. So it's like, he should know this stuff. Now, if the complaint says that the defendant alluded to her being a spy rather than stating it directly, she's going to have to show that the implication was clear enough to actually, that a reasonable listener understood it as an accusation and that it damaged her reputation in measurable ways. Like that she lost a contract, she has to show it, or someone canceled her appearance. And without any evidence of that, the case is very difficult to win. Extremely difficult. So it's more optics, I think. But why sometimes people, still file? To force a retraction or apology, right? That's one. And then to signal strength or deter others from repeating the claim, right? So by her doing it, they're going to be like, well, I'm not going to say it because she's probably going to sue me, right? It's a power move. It's, whatever. And it's to control the narrative. The legal filing creates an official document that can be cited publicly. If her counsel is actually who he is, close to the FBI director, Kash Patel, that relationship may have made the decision easy logistically, even if it looks politically awkward. Just file it, even though it's going to fail because, I'm the FBI director and you're my girlfriend. So, they'll be like, oh, she's just going to freaking file another lawsuit. So you better be careful what you say. So strategy to shut people up. Now, when the law firm representing her is also the firm that works with the FBI director's, company, is filing the private defamation suit for the FBI director's girlfriend. The lines between public office and personal power blur. Defamation law demands proof of real damage, not just discomfort. If the claim rests on implication rather than explicit accusation, the courts will have to decide whether reputational harm was real or rhetorical. But for the rest of us, right, the bigger question remains. When legal muscle tied to public office enters private disputes over speech, does that strengthen justice or does it chill the conversation? That's my call. That's where I have, an issue. Okay? Because the way the legal rail is, we have Alexis Wilkins suing. Kash Patel is not a plaintiff. Jesse Banal's firm, also tied to Patel's foundation, is her counsel. That creates the appearance of an overlap, but not necessarily an ethics breach unless Patel used government resources or directed the filing. Like, could you imagine if there was like a subpoena or that someone, sent out, text that he might have said, yeah, go ahead, do it. Because I'm pretty sure as a girlfriend, she'd be like, are you okay with me doing it? Just that could be used against Kash Patel, right? If it's not framed correctly. So I wanted to kind of make that clear, right? Now, each complaint claims defamation per se, because Mossad honeypot implies espionage, which is a crime. In such cases, damages can be presumed, right? Now, the weakest part of this is allusion, a repost or meme without explicit language. Like, courts have ruled implication can equal defamation only if an average reader clearly gets a defamatory meaning. That's hard to prove. Like, for me, when I saw it going around, I'm going to be dead honest with you, like dead honest. When I saw they were like, oh, this is Kash Patel's girl, I was like, damn. I mean, he's not bad looking. He's not bad looking. I know a lot of people put like really ugly pictures. He's not that bad looking. He's like your typical, Asian guy, typical. He looks like a friend of mine from a long time ago called Sukhwinder. He was the first Sikh that actually explained to me what Sikhism is and all that stuff. I mean, they all kind of look the same, right? For me, I know that sounds so bad what I just said, but it's true. It's kind of like this conversation where I was telling my eldest daughter, because I spoke to her today, she's doing great, and I ordered her a bunch of snacks for her and her person that she stays with, her battle buddy. They share a room. It's a dude. So I sent them a bunch of like a lot. Like, that was like a fortune of stuff. They're getting a ton because it's going to come like in December. And I even sent them a little Grinch Christmas tree for morale. And a bunch of like protein, like salmon and chicken packets, shelf stable stuff that they could use, treats, chocolates, kachava, whatever the fuck that is, stuff like that. Anyway, sorry. But during that conversation, I was telling her how I was at Costco getting all these things because I'm mailing some off and I got some from Amazon too, right? Because there's some things that Amazon won't send to, a military installation. So I was at Costco and this kid goes, oh my God, are you Chinese? To the dude. And the guy was like, no, I'm Japanese. And then the kid was like, is that like a Chinese thing? And then he goes, no, there's China is another country, Japan's another country, and Korea's another country. He's like, so you're all Chinese, but with different names. Right? So that's the way I see Asian men. They could be Indian or Pakistani, but they kind of look the same. The only people that are significantly different are people that come from Saudi Arabia. They have a very specific nose that's long, and that's shared actually with the Somalis and some Ethiopians, just saying. And this is probably like a genetic mix. Sorry, went on a tangent. Nerd side came out to be to clarify. But anyway, the whole thing of they all look the same. I'm guilty of that too. But anyway, now I want to say that, if the defendant invokes like anti-slap statutes, the suit can be dismissed early unless Wilkins produces concrete evidence of harm and reckless intent. Okay? Because legally, this is a long shot. This is all optics saying, look, I'm going to flex it with a $5 million lawsuit if anybody calls me a Mossad honeypot again. And to be fair, like I said, when I first saw it, I was like, Kash Patel's not that ugly. He looks good. He is good looking. I've seen the guy in front of me when I've been to events. He's like a row or two in front of me. The one person that looks better on camera and not in person is Boris Epstein. Looks terrible in person, looks way better on camera. And on camera, he's not even that good. Kash Patel is not photogenic, kind of like me. I look terrible on camera. In person, people are like, oh, you look really different. And I'm like, I hope that's a good thing, So, he's all right looking. Okay, obviously, she's 20 years younger. Maybe she's into daddy figures. Or maybe, she could be a gold digger. Who fucking knows? I'm not saying like he's rich, but he's not poor. Who cares? I really don't care. I don't care. It doesn't affect my life. And as long as it doesn't affect Kash's work, and if it keeps him happy, I'm cool. But when people are calling her a Mossad honeypot, they're alluding that there's no way a woman of his age can be with him unless there's a reason. I mean, if they went with gold digger, I'd be a little bit more like, okay, I can see that. Mossad honeypot with no evidence of her being Israeli or Jewish. But on the other hand, we do have Mossad assets that are not Israeli or Jewish too, right? There's a ton of them. And there's people that pretend they're Jewish. So I'm just saying. So it doesn't really bother me, right? But it bothered her, right? And I don't know why it bothered her. Was she not welcome? Do people not trust her? Yeah, they probably don't trust you in the equal side of saying, the age difference. So it's maybe that you're a gold digger. It could be the same thing. The people do think like that, right? I mean, Kash is lucky. He's got a hot girl, right? If he's happy and she keeps him happy and they're happy together, like who gives a fuck? But there are some people that are like that. Spiteful, that'll be like, why does he have the cute younger lady, And so, stories start. Oh, honeypot. Oh, this. Oh, that. Right? Correct? So to Alexis, I would say, look, I don't know why you're getting your panties in a twist. There's a ton of people that are just calling you a gold digger, not even a Mossad agent. So if they're not looking at you, right, and they don't respect you, it's probably because they have that kind of, perception of women that are younger that go for older men. There are just some women that just love older men. And there's some dudes that love older chicks. Guys, I've got big game with 20-somethings. And I'm like, no, I could be your grandma. But some people are into that stuff. So it's whatever. And, there are women, remember, it's like that lady that used to follow Bergie that was obsessed with people in jail, like MJ who fucked Jake Chansley just because he was in jail. There's people that are obsessed with shit like this. They like shit like this. They're into shit like this. And people of power, holy shit, they could be as ugly as fuck and they'll be like, I don't care. The guy has power. I like that. Some women like biceps. I like forearms on men. I look at their forearms. Don't ask why. That's my thing. I look at your forearm and that's my thing. I don't look at butts or faces. Aside from the mind, I look at forearm. Some women look at power. You could be a mafia man, right? A big piece of shit that just kills people all day, but that's power, so they will come to you. So, there's a lot of things that attract people to each other. Nobody gives a shit. But having said that, this is a really big long shot. And if Elijah, invokes an anti-slap statute, that could help him, because defamation per se requires clear accusation of criminality and, a meme without text, not a cross line, but by filing all these suits through a firm linked with a public office linked foundation, I would say, it sends a louder message than it delivers a legal remedy, right? And see, the optics suggest lawfare using civil law to discipline discourse around intelligence, Israel, and the personal lives of officials. Even if every move is technically private, the signal is public. Certain topics could now cost you millions in defense fees. That's what they do. They sue you so you're broke. That creates a chilling effect identical to hate speech statute. Okay? This is why I don't like it. Because what Alexis just did is what hate speech statutes do. Self-censor yourself, bitch. Or else I'm going to sue you to the ground because my boyfriend or me have money and I will just sue you even if I lose. You're going to have to pay for an attorney. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do that. And you're going to be broke. So I don't like that. I don't like that kind of flex of power that I'm going to sue you to the ground. You know, I could sue Millie Weaver. I could sue Gavin Wentz. I mean, they're broke. Why would I go after them? I could sue a ton of people, but obviously it's going to cost money, but it's not going to be beneficial because it's not going to benefit me. It's just going to make them broke and I may or may not win because defamation is there. I mean, even though Gavin Wentz actually publicly stated, I called CPS on their kids when I have record of who actually did it and he lied publicly and then closed his account like I didn't see it, I could totally slap him with something. But he's broke. The head of his company died. Their cucks box is cucked out, you know, because they were using Chinese tech. Like, you know, I'm just like, why do it? That's my problem. My problem is that it's flexing power and I don't like that. But there could be a reason for that. And I'll give you some ideas. So like, you know, Australia, Korea, like I said, you know, debate hate speech laws, right? But in America, we don't need new statutes. We just outsource censorship to civil court. If calling someone a spy becomes a $5 million risk, most people will stop questioning anything touching intelligence or Israel at all. It's regulation by intimidation. This is why I don't like it. See, while I see Dinesh D'Souza, who's got really bruised knees for BB, you know, calling out, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Where's free speech? It's like, shut up. Call it what it fucking is. Okay? Call it what it fucking is. All right? That is basically what it is. It's regulation by intimidation. Boom. That's what it is. Now, should a foundation tied to a federal director bankroll private lawsuits involving, I don't know if it's bankrolling, but it's just representing. So I shouldn't say bankroll because I don't know. I haven't seen, it's not like we're going to see who's paying. But his foundation tied person should not have represented his girlfriend. Are we watching personal reputation defense or the soft launch of speech policing through litigation? Who decides which insinuations are intolerable? The courts, the public, or the powerful? You know, I just see it as impropriety. It appears inappropriate behavior and potential precedent. Now, defamation law exists to protect reputations, not patrol opinions, you know, and the statements that people make actually have to have weight. Elijah Schaffer is no one that has weight. And when those with institutional power can deploy private networks or lend private networks to silence implications, the rest of us get the message. Some people can't be questioned. And whether it's hate speech bills abroad or at home, lawsuits abroad or at home, the pattern is the same. Reshape the boundaries of the permissible. And the only defense left is the oldest one. Keep speaking, but know exactly what you're speaking. Free societies die when fear of offense replaces the pursuit of truth. And that is the biggest issue here. And, you know, as I think about it, I'm like, why would a person like Wilkins sue? Right? Because in our country, truth is a defense. But it's not a shield against rumors or fucking trolls. Okay? Because Elijah Schaffer, he's simply a fucking troll. To me, he's not anyone important. He's not someone I would take news from. He's not some, like, I wouldn't, like, if he says something, I wouldn't even take it with a grain of salt. I remember when I told Millie, hey, Millie, he was involved with all this shit. Yeah, well, he's popular. And it's like, God, you're fucking dumb. Like, but I'm talking to someone who's on Girls Gone Wild. Of course, standards here on reputational conversation. Someone can be a piece of shit according to other people that's been through jail and all this stuff. I'll still talk to them as long as they're reasonable and credible in what they're saying. I don't really care about their past. Yeah, I know. My cat's screaming to come in. You guys can all hear Biscuit. No, Biscuit. I'm sorry. I'm not getting up to open the door to you. Now, filing a suit forces a legal record, right? That says that this claim is false and I'm challenging it under oath, right? So when you file it, you're already saying it's false and I'm telling you it's false. Here it is under oath. And that alone can actually stop outlets from repeating it. Well, actually, I can tell you, Alexis Wilkin, that doesn't really work. And I'll tell you why. Because when people started calling me QAnon, I asked them to define what the fuck that meant and how they implicated me as something that doesn't even fucking exist. Put that shit on the record. The court actually responded to it, and people still do it. The Colorado Sentinel, I mean, I've got 2 years. I'll probably fucking sue them because Colorado needs it, right? At some point. I've got a shit ton to do right now. But at some point, I got a 2-year statute. I'm going to fuck you up just for doing that because that shit's on the record and you can't play dumb. And you did it on purpose just to smear me, but I really am not going to target that now. But that's basically why you sue. Now, Alexis is also obliging the defendants to show evidence. Now, if they can't, she wins and gets a retraction. Now, they only have to show evidence if she can show evidence of damage. Like she has to say, here's a contract that was canceled. Here's how much money I lost. She can't say, oh, I wasn't invited to this party, or people don't feel comfortable around me and so I wasn't allowed to go to this event with cash or something. That doesn't count. Okay. Now, from a strategy view, it's cheaper to make an example of loud voices than chase hundreds of smaller ones, right? So for some reason, she thinks Elijah Schaffer is important. He's fucking not. Check his account. If you audit his following, it's actually mostly bots. So if you're a rising public figure, a lawsuit isn't always about winning. It's putting the rumor on trial instead of yourself, basically. Now, that's probably why you're doing it. And it's fine, Alexis. You do you. But this can open up a lot of issues because the fact that Binal's firm, being both Cash Foundation's counsel and his girlfriend's lawyer, right? Alexis Wilkin, that creates optics of institutional muscle in a private fight. And then coupled with the shit where people are saying that he's using his private jet to go and see her concerts, then they'll say that he's blurring the lines with his personal partner and bringing in the FBI institution. That could be really hard for him. Now, while that's not illegal, right, to have the Cash Foundation's counsel representing Cash's girlfriend, it's politically tone deaf for someone heading a federal agency, and the risk isn't corruption, it's perception. We know perception is everything nowadays, especially in the digital age. And the perception that state power can reach you through a civil docket, even if no government dime is spent, when a federal director's own foundation lawyer files personal suits, it looks like the badge is still in the room, okay? And that's where there's an issue. Now, there is a free speech precedent, so defamation law is civil, not criminal, but the chilling effect is real. If implied, the association with a government or religion can trigger multi-million-dollar claims, then discourse about power structures or foreign policy becomes legally hazardous. See, because it's like you won't need hate speech law when lawsuits can do the policing. If an emoji, a meme, or a half sentence can be read as defamation of the powerful, we've outsourced censorship to civil court. And do you trust your civil judges? And then criticism of nations, religions, or ideologies must stay protected, even when it offends. Because once one subject becomes untouchable, the line will move again and again and again. Only approved speech remains. Now, as far as Alexis, maybe she's defending her reputation. Maybe someone's defending a narrative. Either way, these cases remind us that freedom doesn't disappear in a single law. It erodes through fear of lawsuits, fear of labels, fear of speaking the wrong truth about the wrong people. The answer isn't silence, it's precision. Speak honestly, check your facts, and refuse to let any power, decide what questions are off limits. And that's key. That is key. So, when I see people, talking about this and talking free speech, they don't seem to understand. This is to censor speech through intimidation. And unfortunately, Kash Patel has been wrapped into this, kind of overlapping, his office with her, and with them pulling records of FBI flights. How many times did she join him? Is she in the room when he's talking? This could be a hot fucking mess. This was a very wrong play. And Alexis, let me tell you something. I was a victim of crimes. My children were victims of crimes. And I had people defaming me day and night. I mean, I had a pedophile, a Habsburg gay guy preaching Jesus, fucking, oh my God, right? Attacking me, Alexis, and my children. I have mentally incapacitated people constantly saying things about me. And I didn't see them. I did go after Media Matters. I did go after Ross Elder because they're the center point of the operation that's being deployed on our country. And I feel really bad that it hurts. And there are a lot of people that are just going to listen to rumors because their mind doesn't think right. But you don't have to do this lawsuit. And it would be great if you said, you know what, I'm going to withdraw my lawsuit because it kind of gives the illusion that I'm suing him, to instill fear in people. And I don't want to do that. But I'm actually very angry and I don't want people saying these things if they don't have evidence. And if I see anyone making an assertion that this is key, then done. Please pull that lawsuit. Make a very gracious statement because this is very dangerous territory for a whole nation and it could actually ping back on cash. But on the other hand, if it's an op like that I haven't been read in, I'm not going to state the two operations that I might think it is. But it also could be a third nefarious one, which is a way that we can actually bring in censorship. All the countries are doing it. Maybe it's coming to America too. Oh, and speaking of defamation suits and suing people, President Trump suing the BBC. I want to see the chat. How many of you knew that BBC was running point for the whole J6 operation? Let me see. Let me see the chat. How many of you knew that? Because I told you that. Okay, so those that didn't know probably didn't hear me say it. Back in 2021, when the J6 committee was formed, there was a lot of evidence brought to this fake ass fucking committee, right? Now, I did tell you it's a bunch of fucking British journalists running around, didn't I? Now, how I said it was with evidence. What's the evidence? Enrique Tarrio is being followed around by a reporter named Amy Harris. Remember? Amy Harris took a sabbatical from her job and worked for the BBC. Let me repeat that. Amy Harris took a sabbatical from her US-based job. I mean, she's tapped from over the river. John Brennan knows the bitch. Stop it. Our journalists are our biggest fucking spies. Now, she worked under the banner of the BBC. She followed Enrique Tarrio around. The infamous video of being underground in that parking lot with Kelly Sorrell in them, right? Was run by the BBC. And if you remember, J6 showed all her footage, used all her information, but she was never testifying. Why? She was the only motherfucker that was able to quash a subpoena, but nobody else. Just her. I already told you. Why didn't the others tell you? Because one, they're probably operators in the operation that they've been perpetuating all this time. I mean, they convinced you that canvassing was going to help you. They also told you that digital ID is necessary. ID is necessary. Voter ID, AKA real ID, was necessary so they can bring you onto the blockchain system. I did tell you that. They were all operations. You had multiple of them. But I did tell you that the BBC was front and center, didn't I? And I also told you that Stop Hate was part of the front organization. Don't you remember that picture with Ali Akbar in the front where they were bringing people from out of nowhere? We digitally simulated it. I told you. Let me guess. I got lucky again? Or maybe I'm just good at Google. Or maybe I know what the fuck I'm talking about. And you guys have been following operators for a very, very long time, And here I'm going to flex and people, how cocky. Bitches, my IQ was 216 when I was 5. They couldn't even measure it at the age of, when did I take it? Wait, hold on, 2008. So I was 30 when I retook it. They couldn't even get a fucking score. Again, not flexing. Oh, look, I'm smart, because it's actually a plague. It's not a very good thing. I think way too fast. I get bored very easy when I talk with people. If I'm not engaged, okay? And, but time and pain has actually created a more compassionate side, and I'm not as transactional anymore, which is great. I love that about me. So I'm kind of glad that I have this curse. So I've already told you. And everyone's acting like, oh, the BBC. I fucking told you. Oh, let's talk about Lisa Page and Peter Shaw. Told you all that breaking information too. In 2018, right? Kind of like how I told you it was Tef, that fat ass that was the ambassador of Moscow that unmasked General Flynn way before anybody else knew. How? Well, probably because I know what I'm talking about. Just pointing out some facts. Just pointing out some facts. So if President Trump is suing the BBC, here's my suggestion to President Trump and his team. Drag Amy Harris's fucking ass in. And then you got the enchilada of the J6 committee too. And you can ask Bill Barr why he let it slide. That's how you do it. So I already told you all these things. Like I'm going to tell you a lot more things coming forward for what's about to come. Yeah, it's a gift, double-edged sword. There you go. There you go. Tor, I never heard of you. Oh, that's okay. I'm censored like nobody's business, right? My YouTube has over 90,000 followers, and I think I have 500 watching me. I'm not monetized on YouTube, but I'm there to just grab new voices. We need truth, right? We need clarity, and I'm a little salty, but I will always give you what I see as truth. Now, tomorrow's Thursday. Friday, I should be filing my lawsuit. Well, the amicus. 3 of them. And then I'll speak to you about it. So I'm going to be very busy editing because I'm trying to find how to verbiate something. You know, when you introduce evidence that is publicly available, you want to make sure you word it correctly. You know, because these people, like them or not, they tried their best to save our country. And they used valid laws and, valid methods. I have nothing to gain about this. I'm only going to spend money on this. And it's the money that I get from the people. $1 subscription, $5. I actually got a phone call from someone today. I got a voicemail saying, cancel my $5 subscription, but they don't tell me where they're subscribed. And I don't use those platforms. So you have to figure it out yourself. So if someone's calling me to cancel, don't commit fraud and say that you tried to cancel it and then charge me for it. Try to find out what platform you subscribed on. Because for some reason, some platforms, usually locals, just give my name. But if you've subscribed to me through Coffee, Subscribestar, Locals, or PayPal, just find out what platform you signed up so you can cancel it, because I don't have control over that. Your $5 when it gets to me is like less than $4 sometimes. Sometimes even way less than that. So so for me, you're going to get what I have to say. I have accountability to the people, no sponsors, nothing. I do all of this through the subscriptions that I have. So all the lawsuits, all the travel, everything is just from the support that I get from the people. I have the best Fortune 1000, 1 million, which is the people. So thank you to everyone, my subscribers on X, Subscribestar, those that have, I actually love, I don't have a lot. I have a few people that have $5 subscriptions monthly on my PayPal. And it's the button that says, I employ you. I freaking love that. It totally, and you know what? The day I woke up out of sleep where I had this idea, because I guess in my sleep, I was thinking about these pardons, right? I woke up at 4 in the morning and I kind of just was like, So they're fucked. So I opened up a case, the one in Arizona, read on it, and then I slept again. And then an hour later, around 5:30, I woke up and I was like, bingo, time to bring some evidence. And so now the evidence comes. And I'm hoping that the evidence that I provide can actually help the DOJ prosecute the AGs, because they knew about this. More so, they were aware of it from CISA a long time ago. And so there's documents for that. I don't have those documents because I don't have the clearance. Speaking of clearance, let me reiterate, whatever Alex Jones and all these sloppy seconds people said about George Soros funding protests, about them being, oh my God, they are nobody. The people that are orchestrating things are very high up there. We have active duty military. We have freaking US Cybercom people. We have State Department. We have Department of Justice. They're fucking working against our nation as we speak. And they are planning something for the spring. Now, the front will be these No Kings people. They're nothing. It's what they're doing behind the scenes. This is very scary. This is extremely scary because remember, like I said, USAID, because when I saw that USAID was funding the No Kings protests, I lost my fucking mind. Okay. I was like, they're not. The last time USAID funded anything that had any relation to do with protests was in 2023 when they gave a bunch of money to Chenoweth when she moved from the Colorado University organization she was to the one at Harvard Kennedy, where she, get this, and now you'll see why we had all these LGBT trans killers. She was implementing within the United States, which is against USAID policy, because any of those programs that you fund, like for nonviolent protest or protesting, has to be outside of the United States. That's the rules of USAID. Oh, and by the way, Marco Rubio, you have motherfuckers that you are sending to other countries that are coming back to our nation, providing information to subversives. They're working with you and traveling with you. But I'm going to get this to the right hands, and I have to do it the right way, because I'm not going to make it public, because when I make shit public, we get losers like Alex Jones or half-baked motherfuckers that take and mimic, right? And they twist it. So this is going to one person and one person only. And so as we do this week, well, this coming week, our big meeting is on Monday in another city. That's how we're going to provide it. Because I'm going to tell you this. Judging from the CAC cards that we've collected, a lot of these people have TSSCI clearance. This is a big problem. Now, one thing that my female counterpart, Mergero, Angela, said was, what if they're spookawoos that have penetrated and come in? Well, they're free game. Okay? That's the way it is. Like, we're not part of the government. I don't work for the government. I work for the people of the United States. I'm independent. I have no rules. I do what I want. We do what we want because no one is funding us but the people. Remember that. This model actually works. If people actually worked and not did operations, we'd have a lot better press. So, I'm going to tell you, we have their names, their pictures, and their fucking IDs. Okay? And I'm not understating it. Because, if you notice, when, unfortunately, we finally convinced Millie Weaver to put out the Sunrise Zoom calls, those were filtered through. Jack Posobiec took it and said, I wrote the book on Antifa. Antifa is not a real thing. Antifa, get this. Let me explain to you what Antifa is. And I'm going to tell you this pretty simple. Antifa with their black bloc, right, was an answer to the Proud Boys. If you ask yourself why we have no Proud Boys or Oath Keepers anymore, anybody? Where are they? Oh, you see the op now? Good. Keep asking questions, keep paying attention, and try to stay out of the drama, right? Give yourself some peace. And, you should be writing letters to the judge of Tina Peters saying, hey, what's taking so long, man? The woman is old. She's sick. Like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, what's reasonable time? Y'all be quick. It's been a month, bitch. Not, excuse me, honorable judge. I didn't mean to call you. Yeah, you know what? No, I kind of did because this really fucked up. And I know it's not his fault because he was waiting on the Colorado Prison Bureau, which I'm thinking, a lot of people are like, oh, that was what's his face delaying it. No. There's a lot of theories of why it happened, but my judgment is to give her better care, to help her. this is where my heart goes. I want it to be like that. So I'm going to manifest that was the reason that was done. It wasn't done to block her exit or to delay. So, it's going to be pretty interesting what we're going to be providing. And I'm not going to be reporting it. I'm going to let this go through the appropriate channels, and I will comment when they come out. You and everyone who listens to me will know, but it will never be stated. I mean, that's the way it should be. In the meantime, I hope most of you can stay centered and be a little bit more critical of hot takes. And, the government shut down. I'm really hoping that Elon Musk is still, letting the government use, Starlink and all and shit like that. Cause that would kind of suck, and mind you, the reason I say this is because I heard that in, what country was it? There was some country. I forget. It was some fucking Asian country somewhere that, some big government company had like Starlinks and they didn't pay their bills, so he cut them off. So it's like, hey, we have a government shutdown, be nice. But I know my baby has, because I got her a Starlink. So where she's deployed, she and her battle buddy and whoever she rents her her password to, guest password, they have internet. It costs $165 a month, but my baby's able to talk to me and we can play video games. I'm hoping that before I leave on Monday, maybe Sunday. Oh, shit. And I have such a busy Sunday because Terpsy's in like the Greek Orthodox Youth Association. She's got basketball. She's in their little basketball league now. Oh, and mind you, I want to tell you guys something about church. So, I don't agree with the whole structure of church. I believe that God lives within us. Church is more about community and talking about God and bringing love together. Like, to me, it feels extremely ritualistic when we're repeating things other than speaking about them and learning from each other. So it kind of deters me. But I love the sense of community and bringing God together and, under God, right? That's why I like church. But I have been far and apart on going to church since COVID, but more so since I requested an investigation to be opened up into the priest who was subsequently arrested in a huge human trafficking ring in Cleveland. I actually thought it was just more money laundering. That was actually quite shocking. I'm not the FBI. They did it. Obviously, here's another example of speaking the truth, people not liking it. I had spoken the truth and I said, I don't feel comfortable. I feel like something's going on, in the church. Something feels really off. And I'm going to fuck all of you up because the priest and you colluded to exclude my child from a thing. And I think it has to do with the questions that I asked, right? And so I felt like all the moms, for the Greek Youth Orthodox thing hated me because I said that. And so it kind of felt nice to be like, bitches, I was right. But it also made me sad because I think they just had faith in him, and him turning out to be part of one of the largest human trafficking stings with child trafficking involved, kind of hurt their sense of safety. So even though it gave me instant pleasure to be like, I started that. Remember how you were being a bitch to me? I didn't say it except for once to super bitch, but I kind of feel, I felt vindicated, but we have to understand that when we speak the truth, evil pushes back really hard. And it could be done through other people and means. It will try to humiliate you, to isolate you, to attack you. No matter what you do, it will put you in there. I mean, I had a friend whose kid fucking lost her mind. It's a true story. Not going to say when or where. Lost her complete fucking mind, right? And then I was asked, hey, my child is going through this and having psychiatric drugs on her record would look bad. I'm already on something for depression or something like that. I can't take it. Would you mind going and get yourself prescribed for my daughter so that I can help her? And I'm like, that's illegal. I can't do that. And you should help your kid. And then that person went to another person's feelings that I hurt, which was a wife of a friend of mine. And I told her, you're just controlling. You're just with him for his money. Like, you've created like this fake ass family with him. And all you want to do is go and pose for pictures and shit because you're thirsty. And that's my friend. And I don't like the way you're treating him, all bossy and controlled. And so they got together and then they were spreading rumors about me. Now, when we speak the truth and we stand for the people we love, like I stood up for my friend and I stood up for justice, and fucking treat your kid the right way. Like, if it's lost, it's mine. Maybe you should be doing something. Like, actually, the child had like a nervous breakdown. People will come back at you. And that's what is done. Evil acts like that. They will charge, they will attack, they will lie, they will try to isolate you again. This is a real problem. And Alexis, Wilkins, if you get this message, if it's not true, it shouldn't bother you. And you being okay with that is perfect. I please ask you to gracefully stop this lawsuit and make it clear that you do not want to create a precedent that can impact your boyfriend's career of fear of litigation and silencing and censoring the truth, please. I don't say you're not right. I'm someone that everyone's publicly named. I know how that feels, but for the sake of the FBI director's position and the people of the United States, I would really ask of you to please gracefully put that out. Like, to just say, I'm mad, he should be held accountable, but I know because I'm dating Cash, this can hurt his career and the integrity of this office. And therefore, I'm going to take down this lawsuit because it's, censorship by fear of litigation. Please. Right? I mean, at the end of the day, Laura Loomer could do a shit ton more damage with shit that people have been saying. And she hasn't done it because I think she recognizes that problem. The bigger we are, the faster they hit lawsuits. And it's not okay. I mean, President Trump could be flexing his money anytime, but he's very selective in how to do it. So I urge all of you to do it. Anyone that's in that position. So Alexis, this is just my 2 cents to you. You haven't fallen in my eyes. I don't know you personally. I wish you all the best. You make Cash happy. I'm happy. If the rumors are true, that shit will come out. They're fake. Nothing will come out. So leave it to God and just let it go. So on that note, let's see what song. I think Influencers Gone Amok would be a nice song to end this with. The Irony of Influencers. Brought to you by Miguel did this fantastic put together here. May have some new music coming along. I see other people are playing around with Suno and stuff. So, guys, once I file this, I'm looking at like Friday morning because tomorrow I have pretrial court with Candy. Finally, they'll pay me my money. I mean, they've already lost that case. So it's been done and dusted. So I have to do that tomorrow. I have a ton of shit to do and finish this filing, kind of narrow it down and make it perfect because it's an amicus brief. It's got to be perfect. So I hope you guys will enjoy it. I mean, again, this is a fight I didn't expect, but the epiphany came and someone has to do something. No matter how inconvenient it is, what is it? A couple $1,000s? Nobody cares. It's a couple $1,000s is nothing to freedom. I actually had that discussion with my daughter and her boyfriend yesterday where I had like the template and I was like, yeah, this is it. But I'm like, because I've been like reading and studying and doing, right? And I was like, and I'm not a lawyer, but I'm smart. So I tried to like weave it in there. It's a fight that we should be fighting for people that we've left behind. People that fought for us and we were cheering for them when it was popular to do so, but we forget about them now. I'm going to support them and we should all be supporting these people. So again, thank you all for subscribing to me on Rumble, on X, the tips you guys give me on Cash App, PayPal, whatever. You keep my, my lights on and everything going. So I really appreciate you. And maybe Saturday we'll do it. Well, if I file it on Friday, I don't know if I have any Zoom calls. So they're picking up. So, but I will do one after the filing. So that way I can tell you what the strategy is and what evidence we submitted. It'll be kind of cool. So we should all be supporting these people that fought for us, just like we support President Trump, who fought for us. He's been marred. He's been charred. He's been flung shit in his face, but we still stand for him because we know that he's fighting for us. And these people fought for us. They're just not that visible like President Trump. So it's really important that we stand by people that fight for us all the time. And even Kash Patel, he fought for us. So this is why I felt it necessary to just give my perspective of what's going on. With no malice. I don't agree or disagree with any comments. I have no skin in the game. Don't know the girl. She looks cute. It's just like, but this is not okay. Fear of litigation in pushes self-censorship. And if Kash Patel's girlfriend can do it, then this AG's girlfriend can do it, then this guy's boyfriend can do it, then this person can do it, and suddenly we have a censored society. So Elijah Schaffer is like not even important. Like if it was someone like Mark Levin, I'd probably be cheering you on, but he would be praising you if you were a Mossad agent. So I'll step on this on that one. But on that note, God bless everyone. Have a fantastic evening, and I'll see you right after my filing. And here is The Irony of Influencers by TORE.org.
For justice and truth, yet behind closed doors they're aloof, promising change but staying the same, playing the people like pawns in a game. Their voices loud, their actions weak, in the shadows their true motives speak. They rise on the backs of those they betray, while the real issues are kept at bay. They amplify the voices they choose, silencing those they want to lose. They jeer at your stumbles, revel in your plight. Their words cut deep like blades in the night. Concealed behind screens, their joy is clear. Thriving on pain, they draw near. They don't see the people's disdain, yet the people also play the same game. It's why their followers slowly drift away in so much pain. Entitled, delusional, self-serving, oh their pride. While people suffer, they walk and laugh and take it all within their stride. Yet they are worshipped and rewarded. The imbalance is oh so clear. The real problem's right here. In the grassroots, the same old game. Influencers and leaders all the same. Social media's playground, a mirror to see the political stage hypocrisy. Call it out and you're their foe, but the truth is something we all know. Who stands by their side, knowing this? They are held to the same standard as an abyss. You hold the key, they promise change, they promise hope, but in their lies we cannot cope. The same old faces, the same old game, in the end it's all the same. They rise to fame on broken dreams, ignoring all the silent screams. Their power grows, their influence spreads, while truth and justice hang by threads. Entitled, delusional, self-serving, oh their pride. While people suffer, they walk and laugh and take it all within their stride. Yet they are worshipped and rewarded. The imbalance is oh so clear. The real problem's right here. Eyes wide open, we see through the veil. The irony of influence, a tale to tell. In every group, the same old song. The power imbalance, it won't be long. Behind the screens, they hide their face. In shadows, they control the space. Their words are weapons, their smiles deceive. In their world, it's hard to believe. They claim to fight for you and me, but in their hearts they're far from free. Their actions speak, their motives clear. Their words just ear candy for your ear. The real problem's always near. See the truth in every action, in every move. The irony of influence plain to see. A call for change for you and me. Behind the screens, they hide their face. In shadows, they control the space. Their words are weapons, their smiles deceive. In their world, it's hard to believe the real problem's always near. So let's question more and see the truth in every action, in every move. The irony of influence plain to see. A call for change for you and me.